This audiobook is a non-profit fan adaptation of the web novel Greek mythology, The Spiritual Dominator. All credit goes to the original author. Greek mythology, The Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 51 Golden Human. On the bank of the East China Sea, when Ryan also came here, the work of creating humans really began. Wasting no time, Cronus summoned the gods in a clearing near the river. They mixed their own blood with the soil and dripped it into the original liquid flowing out of the life face. The gods exert their divine power on these raw materials, allowing them to acquire extraordinary essences and at the same time be naturally close to the gods. The raw materials were prepared, and under the gaze of the gods, Ryan used these raw materials to shape the first human body. He first traced a shape and wrapped the skin around it. Immediately afterwards, he shaped the flesh, blood, meridians, and internal organs, allowing the power of life to skillfully achieve a balance in the human body. Then, Lane determined the position of the bones and the flow of blood, allowing the blood to flow through the human body. Finally, he added bone marrow, heart, and brain, allowing life to gain power. 6 days have passed. Even with Ryan's control over life and his understanding of the human body, he made several mistakes before succeeding. At the end, Lane added eyes to it, and the original human body was born. This is the first human being and the most perfect human being. In him, the gods seem to be able to see the characteristics of each of their gods. He will become the template for the golden humans and their future leader. When everything was finished, Ryan dusted off his sleeves and took off a long whip from his waist. This is the prototype of an artifact that Ryan shaped using parts of earth and water after the power of the elements merged into the spiritual world. Its power is not strong because the relevant source power of Khaos has already been mastered, but Ryan still chose it because humans are not unique because they are naturally powerful. Ryan planned to take a look at whether this long whip would undergo some interesting changes when several epochs passed and civilization reached its peak. Snapped. Rolling up the remaining materials from the creation of the first human being, Lane mixed it with more earth and liquid. Then he shook it lightly with his long whip, and the mud spots flew all over the sky, and then fell to the ground. When it falls, it changes, and in the blink of an eye, the brown spots of mud turn into hundreds of thousands of human beings. They also have the blessings of the gods, but after being thinly separated, they appear a little weak. Amazing skills. Even though he sensed that Mother Earth was watching from a distance, Cronus couldn't help but praise. Although it is not difficult for the gods to create according to the first model, it is very difficult to create hundreds of thousands like Ryan with one whip, even with the help of artifacts. After all, everyone can see that the artifact in Ryan's hand is not strong, and it has not even been completely forged. It's just a little trick. Ryan was not impressed by Cronus' praise. At the same time, he also sensed the unkind gaze of Mother Earth in the distance. Ryan laughed it off. With all the benefits in hand, he naturally had no intention of irritating the old man again. Although in terms of age, he is the real old man. The bodies have been created. Next, I will give them souls. But souls have biases. It is up to you to decide what your life will be like. Other lives are decided by the gods who created them, Cronus said. But human beings, since you call them that, Your Highness Ryan, then just call them humans. I believe that as a unified creation of the gods, human beings should have all good, beautiful, and kind emotions. They should be pious and regard the gods as the supreme ones. They should be fearless and willing to sacrifice everything for the gods. They should also be hardworking and intelligent, and can well complete the tasks assigned to them by the gods. Of course, in return, I allow them to feed on plants and other life, created by the gods. They are the chief of all spirits, the nearest gods among mortal creatures. The voice of the god king spread far away, and none of the gods objected. Although some gods did not agree with this, they did not stand up and speak out, and everything was settled like this. So immediately afterwards, Ryan collected the thoughts of all the gods about their respective creations. Finally, he stood by the river and looked at the bodies of countless creatures on the plain in front of him. An invisible force slowly spread out from the void. With a slight wave of his arm, the lives created by the gods in the past nearly 100 years approached him one after another and were suspended in midair. Only humans stood on the ground, surrounding him in a circle. Divine power began to surge, and the surrounding time and space became chaotic. In a daze, the gods vaguely saw the seven-layer world slowly emerging behind Ryan, but only the peak in the center appeared clearer. At the top of the mountain, behind the palace complex, there is an indescribable well. It is infinitely large and infinitely small, making anyone who sees it feel a sense of longing from the heart. The Well of Eternity, Origin, is condensed by the part of the life source that Ryan captured. It is the source of birth of all souls in the world. Any life that drinks its well water can obtain immortal divinity.
Come trattino.
Along with the long and gentle drink, the transparent well water moved in response. It flows from the well, passes through the 7 spiritual realms, combines with different emotions, and then turns into mist, covering all lives present. On the side, the life bottle still held by the god king trembled slightly. It was originally a part of it, but now it can never be integrated. When the two original fluids that symbolize matter and spirituality rejoin, real life is born. From today on, you are the king of mankind. Pointing to the original creation and the first human race to open its eyes, Ryan announced calmly. At the same time, the 3 artifacts involved in the creation trembled one after another. After a while, their auras became obviously much stronger. On the other side, when such a number of lives are born on the earth, the source power of the world seems to have increased. But because there are only males at this time, they live long but cannot reproduce, so the improvement in source power is not significant. The gods did not benefit from it, but Cronus, the king of gods, was different. In the perception of the gods, his divine power directly reached level 19, approaching the peak of powerful divine power, and he became the head of the gods. This is the special nature of the divine kingship. It is essentially an external power, not the god itself. Therefore, Themis, whose divine origin was promoted, still needed thousands of years to accumulate divine power to reach this point, but Cronus had it immediately. Keen, from today on, your name will be Keen. Under the gaze of the gods, Cronus restrained his unconscious divine power and spoke to the first humans. At this time on the earth, having just been crowned the king of mankind by the Creator, and given a name by another god, Cohen quickly knelt down on the ground to thank the gods for their kindness. Seeing this, the gods all smiled. Beings who look like gods are now worshipping them. This is one of their purposes in creating humans. Standing aside, Ryan watched all this calmly. Like a few gods, he didn't think there was anything to be happy about, so he didn't laugh and just watched silently. He had always said that golden humans are not human beings, but before that he thought that when he really witnessed the birth of human beings and witnessed the emergence of beings similar to his old self, he would have some other emotions, but the fact is, he feels nothing now. When he pinched the first person with his own hands, when he made stipulations for the emotions of golden human beings as if he were writing settings, and when he looked at the hundreds of thousands of bewildered human beings in front of him, he didn't know why. Ryan no longer thinks there is anything special about them. This is the golden human being. Shaking his head, Ryan finally said nothing. He just dispersed the shadow in the spiritual world and waited quietly. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 52, The Oracle of Delphi. On the nameless plane, countless created beings had just gained consciousness and were crawling on the ground under the influence of instinct. Human beings were created, and all other life became active. They came into contact with the world for the first time, and then trembled under the unconscious pressure of the gods in the sky. But no god paid attention to them. At this moment, their eyes were focused on the newly promoted god king and the humans on the earth. Thank you for your help, your highness Ryan. Exuding a powerful aura of divine power, Cronus couldn't control his power for a moment. He stared at Ryan for a few seconds, but finally smiled. Thanks to you, human beings have been created. This is really a perfect life. I wonder if you plan to take some away so that they can be seen in the spirit world. No need. That is not the place they should stay, and the spiritual world does not welcome mortal beings to live for a long time. When they die, their souls will naturally return to my kingdom. Shaking his head, Ryan rejected Cronus' proposal. He glanced towards where Earth Mother was, and felt that the gaze from there had not disappeared yet. Judging from the breath, Gaia seems to have recovered somewhat, but her current situation is still not optimistic. The remaining great divine power was barely stabilized, but Ryan knew that she wouldn't be able to hold on for long. After all, Typhon, Demeter, and even the future master of Hades have not yet been born. Okay then. On the side, the God King nodded with regret. But as a place created by the gods, this place deserves a name. It will become a holy place for mankind to commemorate the achievements of the gods. Your Highness Ryan, after all, you participated in the creation of humans. Since you don't want humans, how about you give this place a name? Raising his eyebrows slightly, Ryan didn't know why Cronus was so keen on getting him involved with humans, but he didn't intend to refuse. Name. After thinking for a while, Ryan finally said, "Then let's call it Delphi." The Great Plains of Delphi, the birthplace of golden humanity. Stretching out his hand, Ryan gently tapped the void in front of him. The next moment, invisible power enveloped the land in front of him. The rocks are bulging, the ancient trees are towering, and on the hillside, a temple full of reliefs and patterns appears from scratch in front of the gods and humans. In the main hall of the temple, the Lord of the Spirit World, the God King and the Earth Mother are enshrined together in the center, because these three have respectively given the soul, body, and existence rights to mortal beings. The rest of the gods involved in creation are enshrined on both sides, proving that mortal life has been blessed by the gods. Of course, Ryan did not create the statues of other gods. He only left his own, a three-dimensional symbol that was constantly changing and difficult to describe in words. He has no intention of showing his appearance in the world, and he doesn't even intend to leave his name. If mortals are going to worship him, it is better to worship the spirit world itself. The Oracle of Delphi, that is its name. As for the mountain, let's call it Parnassus. In later generations, there was also a Delphi temple. Apollo obtained the oracle tablet here, possessed the power of prophecy, and killed the giant python Pitong. But now, it probably won't be related to the son of Zeus anymore. Is it a place where the oracle allows mortals to worship the gods and listen to the gods' will? What a good name. Nodding, Cronus's divine power poured into the temple, and the statue of the God King also appeared in this magnificent building. Unlike Ryan, his statue shows his appearance without any concealment. The God King holds a scepter in one hand, with 3 gems symbolizing domination of the sky, ocean, and earth, and holds one hand in front of him, as if embracing the entire world. I will also build an oracle at the foot of the sacred mountain. In the future, the part of humanity that belongs to me will listen to my will here. Nice idea. Ryan didn't care about Cronus' plans. He was going to leave. But, remembering Cronus' previous gaze on him, Ryan planned to add another fire to the God King. Let him hurry up and expand his authority. Compared with him in the myth, Cronus, whose origin was taken away by Ryan, is much weaker. Cronus, the creation of humans is over. This is the first generation of humans. Now it's time for me to leave. Space fluctuations emerged. Ryan looked at the humans in front of him and said slowly, "They are the golden human beings, the most beautiful, happiest, and most carefree generation of human beings. But everyone must die. When their years are over, the humans of the Silver Age will replace their existence." Silver human? Hearing this, the God King turned around and asked curiously, "Is this a prophecy? If so, what does the alternation of 2 generations of humans mean this time?" Nothing. Humans themselves are insignificant to the gods. Ryan shook his head. It's just that I saw that in the age of silver humans, there will be weapons on the earth. The battles of the gods covered the sky, The blood of gods flowed in the mountains and rivers, and the thrones stood against each other. The figure faded slightly, but Ryan's voice still came clearly. Many gods born later did not understand its meaning, but the faces of the Titans became solemn. Especially Cronus. Although he has never paid attention to the so-called destiny for thousands of years, it can be known from the fact that he has not given birth to a child. The prophecy of Ryan and the curse of Uranus have always been on his mind, and he has never paid attention to it. The moment passed. Swordsmen will rise on the earth. So, after the second generation of humans is born, will there be gods that challenge my position? My child? Yes, the world is urging me, and I cannot put it off forever. The expression on his face remained unchanged. Cronus gritted his teeth secretly. Everyone is left, but I still want to leave him these words. The God King felt the increased power in his body, but he still did not feel relieved. Even now, he was nothing compared to Uranus in his heyday. Even the Heavenly Father, who has lost his position and has only half of his strength, is still out of reach for him at this moment. Such power will decline due to fate, let alone the current self? Second-generation humans? Then there should be no second generation. As long as the human beings created by me are no more than this, the prophecy can be postponed. When I am fully prepared, I can easily break free from the shackles of fate. Making a decision secretly in his heart, Cronus felt slightly relieved. Although reason tells him that fate is not so easy to fool, it is better to have a direction than no direction. It's time for us to discuss the distribution of humans. Opening his mouth to break the silence, Cronus did not intend to let the gods focus on their fate anymore. Hearing this, the eyes of the gods were focused on the God King. Regardless of whether they had any subsequent opinions, it was most reasonable for Cronus to make the initial division. With one act of legislation and one creation of man, the new God King finally established basic authority among the gods. He should have been happy, but it was a pity that Ryan's words before leaving made him unhappy. Let's get started. Facing the gaze of the gods, Cronus said calmly, "We have 1,000 people as a group, and they can cooperate with each other to survive on the earth. Every true god present can at least get his share. As for the rest, let's arrange them according to their respective strengths and contributions." The gods nodded. This is Khaos, where strength always comes before contribution. So, in a relatively harmonious atmosphere, in front of the newborn humans, the gods began to carve up the land. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 53 Faith. There were probably more than 800,000 newborn humans, which was much more than what was described in later myths. But considering that the area of Khaos in this world is much larger, and the area around the Mediterranean Sea may have been a supersized island here, so these people do not appear to be too many. As the God King, Cronus, and the gods who lived on the mountain received the largest share. They returned to Mount Odeals with 300,000 humans, including the original human king. The Lord of the Outer Sea received 150,000 men, and Pontus and Uriah each received 100,000. The two sea gods brought humans to the island, which was transformed from the fallen celestial bodies and the shattered continent during the battle between Heavenly Father and the gods. And the god of the mountains and the God King together brought humans back to their birthplace. Of the remaining 200,000, Gaia left 100,000 around her residence, and the rest was divided among the true gods. Some followed the god of skylight to the underworld, while others were taken to a place on the western border of the continent by the god of celestial bodies. It was the closest place between heaven and earth after the first age. Khaos asked his two daughters to take care of these humans on his behalf. Before leaving, every god who participated in the creation of mankind left their own image in the Oracle of Delphi. Under the influence of the power of the gods, the Oracle has become extraordinary. 100,000 human beings who followed Mother Earth lived together in the Great Plains surrounding the temple. They built houses imitating the oracles and prayed to the gods for food to survive. So plants that humans can eat grew naturally around them. Every time they picked one, another one would grow, and their vines would never wither. Newborn humans are grateful. They had nothing else to do except eat and rest, so they worshipped heaven, earth, sun, moon, and gods devoutly. Under the instructions of the gods, temples were built one after another. The first generation of golden humans were naturally strong, had amazing endurance, and had excellent learning abilities. Human beings who were taken away by different gods often used different gods as the main objects of sacrifice. They built temples in different styles according to their preferences in serving the gods. In this process, perhaps due to the union of soul and body coupled with devout worship, a mysterious power was born. The gods noticed it, or maybe they didn't because they didn't pay attention to it. Perhaps the creation was too deliberate. Human beings in the Golden Age only had positive and beautiful emotions. On this basis, the birth of those mysterious powers also seemed very weak. This weak power may have some effect on the regional gods. But every god who participated in the creation of man is a true god, and they obviously don't care about this insignificant existence. Ryan is not surprised by this. At this time, human faith is not strong because this is the case with life in the spiritual world. Even because they have no body, the faith they bring to Ryan is even rarer. Perhaps only a life that has both intelligence and body, and whose mind has not been modified, can give birth to a large number of beliefs. Zeus in later generations can even use this to break the upper limit of the priesthood, making the humanistic priesthood equal to the natural priesthood. Even if it is obtained from faith, it must be limited by faith, but this is scary enough. With some emotion, Ryan looked at the origin of wine in the spiritual world. Weak and weak. Even if the gods are full of praise for this, the so-called Bacchus can only become the true god's gatekeeper with weak divine power. In comparison, the Dionysus of later generations even took the position of the 12 main gods of Olympus. As long as there is an endless stream of faith, Dionysus will be a powerful god. Regarding this, Ryan only had some guesses, but since there were still very few beliefs, he was not very sure. But what he can be sure of is that as the master of spirituality, Khaos is the first to come into contact with the existence of faith. Even he can at most prevent the emergence of faith, but cannot take the faith of others as his own. It can be seen from this that faith may indeed be biased towards spirituality, but it is by no means derived from pure spirituality. Moreover, Ryan vaguely discovered that obtaining faith does not seem to rely entirely on the so-called devout worship. In other words, the faith gained from simple prayer may only account for a small part of the total, and it fluctuates and may fluctuate at any time due to the mood of mortal beings. After all, even as the creator of life in the spiritual world, there are only a few spiritual beings who truly believe in Ryan. Even the spiritual beings born later, those who have never seen Ryan, only regard him as more of a symbolic existence. They respectfully call him the great ancient spiritual will and consider him to be the world itself without personal thought. In contrast, spiritual beings often worship angels in the spirit world who shuttle between different levels. But even so, the faith that Christos gained is still far less than mine. Sure enough, compared to worshipping, which leaves a profound trace in the history of a race, one's own priesthood has extraordinary significance to the race and has even become part of the cultural inheritance of civilization. The faith brought by these actions is more meaningful than worship. Just like the beings in the spiritual world at this time, although they did not have many beliefs in birth, Ryan could still feel that compared to their unconscious sacrifices to themselves, the concept of himself as their creator and the creator of the spiritual world, it brings significantly more faith than the former. This time, Ryan also went to create humans to verify this conjecture. After all, no evidence can stand alone, and the experience gained simply from beings in the spiritual world may not be suitable for all situations. But now Ryan can confirm his thoughts. As the creator of mankind, Ryan can feel that even if no human knows what kind of God he is, there is still faith transmitted from the collective of mankind. He even had a vague feeling that even if the human race of this era completely disappeared from history, not a single living thing would survive. But as long as the traces they left on the world remain, This kind of faith that does not come from worship will continue to flow. It may be reduced, but it will not disappear completely. This is the intuition brought to Ryan by the priesthood of history. Perhaps this magical power derived from intelligent life has a special essence that is difficult to erase with time. Even after passing through the years, it will still last forever. It's so magical. Civilization, faith, and life are really the most elusive things in the world. But if you put it that way, Prometheus' fate seems not surprising. A person who realizes it first? A person who realizes it later? Obviously, it's just that the great fool is like the wise and the great wise is like the foolish. Recalling his own operations similar to Métis, when the two brothers were born, Ryan gained a deeper understanding of the secrets hidden behind the myths of his previous life. As the first beings to come into contact with bronze humans, the fire thief and his brother may have vaguely discovered the mystery of faith, but in the end, the two made different choices. The 3 generations of God Kings also discovered this. Perhaps Pandora's treasure box and the Great Flood that destroyed the world were essentially Zeus's attempts to test the nature of faith. He discovered this power, which was still weak at the time, and tested it. The result was gratifying. He further completed the missing part of emotion on the basis of the bronze human being, and then understood that faith is more than just kneeling and worshipping. And this is probably the key magic weapon that Zeus uses to fight against fate and infinitely delay the birth of the next god king. Even the subsequent Dionysus and the 12 trials of Heracles were just his further exploration of the power of faith. Civilized? It coincides with my original plan. After looking at the empty third spiritual world and the empty third oracle tablet, Ryan finally set his sights on humans. Following the connection between the spiritual master and the soul, he gently plucked the string in his hand. So Khaos's first dream was born. Oh my god, Shui-kun didn't remember until 1 o'clock that the chapter hadn't been changed yet, so I was just looking at various points to show off the operation. Autism, JPG. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 54 Dream. Time flies, and 700 years have passed since mankind was created. Call. At the foot of the sacred mountain, another boulder nearly 10 meters high was moved. Cohen wiped his sweat and looked at another temple that was about to be built in front of him. Tall and majestic, different from the oracle that was born under the finger of God when it was just born, this is a temple built by the golden humans themselves. Before that, they had built many temples in sequence, and each true god on the sacred mountain had his own one. There are no exquisite reliefs, no mysterious lines, no sense of sanctity that directly reaches the soul at a glance, but Cohen still feels very satisfied. What is built by gods symbolizes the power of gods, and what is built by mortals symbolizes the piety of mortals. The two cannot be confused. King, please take a rest. Just as he was about to move a stone, a voice from the side stopped Cohen in his tracks. In serving the gods, we should not covet comfort. Cohen shook his head. Although he was tired, he didn't feel dissatisfied at all. Human beings in the Golden Age gathered all positive emotions. They were upright, kind, hardworking, brave, and had heartfelt admiration for the gods. In their view, doing things for God is a matter of course. What's more, he was the first human being created by the Lord of the spirit world, and was therefore named the King of humanity. After the carving up of the gods, of course, he was chosen by the God King and came to the surroundings of Odil's mountain. At this moment, there are more than a dozen tribes of various sizes surrounding this sacred mountain. They nominally belong to the gods on the mountain, but they all obey Korn's orders. As the leader chosen by God, although the king at this time is more of a title and has no concept of nobility, officials, or country, he still holds himself to the highest standards. Of course, as the first human being, he does have abilities beyond ordinary people. Of course we should serve God, but you haven't had a break in 7 days. After listening to Cohen's words, although the visitor expressed understanding, he still tried to persuade him. Although as the first human being created, Korn's power far exceeds that of ordinary people, but he is not a god after all. Even in the original mythology, humans in the Golden Age only ascended to the sky after death and became special heroic spirits close to being like gods. All right. After some hesitation, Cohen was finally convinced. Only when you have enough energy can you work more efficiently. Proper rest is also essential. Nodding, Cohen said goodbye to the visitor. He walked to the shade of a tree and sat down leaning against the trunk. There was no sleep in the world of Khaos originally, and the so-called rest of humans only meant stopping work. As beings blessed by the gods, as long as they take a short rest, their energy will quickly return to their original state. But this time, as soon as Cohen sat down, an inexplicable sense of trance came over him. He didn't know what it felt like, so he tried hard to stay awake. However, the power of mortal things could not resist the authority. In the end, Cohen leaned on the tree trunk and fell into a deep sleep. Darkness. It was as if he had fallen into an abyss, unable to move his thoughts, only a cold feeling. The concept of time became blurred, as if it was a day, and it seemed like a second. At a certain moment, Cohen seemed to see a ray of color. Call. Suddenly waking up, Cohen suddenly realized that he was no longer in his original place. At this time, he appeared in front of a tall building. A faint voice came from behind the ever-changing black veil, and an inexplicable chill enveloped Ryan. But to this day, Ryan is no longer the same person he was before reincarnation, so his expression remained unchanged and was not affected at all. Instead, he thought for a while, and then said seriously, "Regarding this matter, His Highness Nyx, I deeply sympathize with your experience. But judging from the current situation, I have 3 ways to solve your trouble." Without asking at all, Nyx continued to look at Ryan with a death gaze, as if he was considering how to strike. Seeing this, Ryan directly stated his method. The first type is the simplest, but also consumes the most. Tilting his head, Ryan glanced at the bottom of the underworld, where Tartarus was. The Cyclops and the 100-armed giant were imprisoned there, and the laws left by Uranus were still restricting them. As long as the reigning god-king did not forgive them, they would not be able to get out of the abyss. Just like the Earth Mother, you can consume the source to make up for this missing part. But the price is that I don't guarantee what the offspring will be, but there is a high probability that it will be a monster with a priesthood, and the Cyclops is already the more beautiful among them. Continue. Ms. Yu was obviously not satisfied with this answer. Not to mention monsters, even true gods. She doesn't want them. Khaos brought her own dry food, and it was annoying enough to ask her to be a surrogate mother. It was a complete dream to expect her to consume her own strength. The second method is a bit painful. Ryan didn't expect Nyx to agree. In fact, the only option he really preferred was the last option. Do you still remember your former heavenly father? Since our Arenas can return the 12 titans to the womb of Mother Earth, then as long as we adopt a similar method, we can naturally take out the gestating embryos. The true god is immortal anyway, so let him be an embryo outside the body that will never mature. Lane's advice was cold, but neither he nor Nyx cared. For the latter, she doesn't even want to look at the burdens that the world forces on her body. As for Ryan, a being who has not even been born with wisdom, he also doesn't care whether the other party exists or not. What about the third method? There was some movement, but recalling Gaia's painful wailing, Nyx still wanted to hear the last option. What's more, this kind of behavior that obviously violates the laws of this world will not only bring pain, but will also inevitably lead to punishment in this world. The last option is to give it to me. Ryan said calmly, I will give it sleep and power again, but it will also be eroded by the spirit world, regestated, and born in an alternative way. The spiritual world cannot corrode pure matter, but gods are difficult to measure in terms of spirituality or matter. I am more inclined to believe that divinity itself is both. The eyes behind the veil narrowed slightly, and Nyx seemed to react. This is the solution you really want. No matter when you don't suffer a loss, you can always find some way to gain benefits. As expected of you, His Highness Ryan. However, Ryan's solution satisfied her, so she just mocked it and was already planning to accept it. Ryan was not angry at all about this. After all, as Nick said, he had never suffered a loss because of this. So, what's your decision? It's yours. Nick's answer was without hesitation. The source of power forced by chaos. I never want to see it again. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 59, The Land of Eternal Night. Then let's go. Under the illumination of the dark moon, Ryan spoke. Now that he had made a decision, he didn't plan to waste any more time. But before leaving, Ryan glanced west. In that direction, a breath that tried its best to hide itself, but was extremely obvious, existed there. Why, isn't that your person? No, if nothing else, that should have been sent by Cronus. Feeling the invisible airflow that he thought was well hidden under the moonlight, Ryan felt a little funny. One of the four wind gods, the specific one has yet to be determined, but judging from the aura, there is a high probability that it is Zephyros, the god of the west wind, who was rejected last time. The other party has been here for a long time, but Ryan has been staying in the spirit world before, so he ignored him. But regardless of whether he was the god of the west wind or not, Ryan didn't quite understand why the other party dared to secretly spy in front of him and a primitive god. Even Ryan, unless he is hiding in history, will be faintly sensed by Gaia when he sets foot on the underworld or the earth. The invisibility of the wind god is more of a physical change. It is easy to deceive other gods, but among Ryan and the original gods, his existence can be seen at a glance. Do you want me to deal with him? On the side, Nyx said casually. She was not interested in why Cronus sent people to monitor Pluto's movements, but if the other party dared to stay after seeing her, that was a challenge to her authority. No need. I can probably guess what he is here for. Shaking his head, Ryan said lightly. Kronos wants to attack the starry sky, but I also have several star gods under his command. He probably has the idea of stopping me in advance if I have any sign of intervening in the dispute. After all, I am not a Titan. God. He doesn't need to take care of his brothers. But since he wants to know my movements, let's show him. Let's go. If this guy is still here when I come back, it won't be too late to deal with him. Ignoring the existence of Chef Eros, Ryan didn't mind that the other party went to report to the God King. But if he dares to come later, that's another matter. Then let's go. Nodding indifferently, Nyx strolled toward the edge of the underworld. If an existence like the god of the west wind hadn't jumped in front of him, Nyx wouldn't have even thought of taking a look. Whether she solves it or ignores it, it makes no difference to her. Crossing the gray plains and passing by the banks of the Styx River, under the leadership of Lady Night, Ryan came to the land of eternal night for the first time. At the beginning of creation, darkness enveloped everything, and eternal night covered the sky. But when the true god of the sky was born, both sank beneath the earth, between the abyss and the strata. Later, due to the intertwining power of the four primitive ancient gods, Hades was born. On the edge of the underworld is the realm of eternal night and darkness. This is why Underworld has a very high status in the underworld. Hecate, who was originally on the trajectory, even became the sub-king of the underworld. Because what distinguishes the size of the underworld is actually the range covered by the light of the underworld. Where there is light, there is the underworld. Where there is no light, there is darkness and eternal night. Unlike the earth, although the underworld will expand as the world's source power increases, its expansion is not the growth of the land, but the limit of the underworld moon, as illumination. Therefore, the expansion speed of the underworld in this world is actually faster than the earth on the ground. Because the current dark moon is the manifestation of the spiritual world, its light is emitted by the 7 spiritual moons in turn, which is much more powerful than the original trajectory. It can be said that if one does not consider Ryan's privatization of public property, in fact, under the sorting out of the spiritual world, the overall origin of chaos has increased, but currently, this increase is only reflected in the expansion of the world's area. Is this the land of eternal night? Following Nyx, Ryan crossed the boundary between light and night. It was dark for a moment, but the next moment, the surroundings became bright again. Contrary to Ryan's imagination, although the land of eternal night only has night, it is not without light. Although he couldn't find the source, Ryan could clearly tell that the light in the land of eternal night was the light of celestial bodies in the night sky, and even the illusory stars that Ryan hung up, their starlight could also shine in here. This is the realm of the ancient god of creation. The alternation of day and night in this world is just the ebb and flow of the external power here. After all, night existed long before the sun was born. Therefore, it is not the rise and fall of the sun that determines day and night, but the persistence of night that divides black and white. It is said by the gods that the land of eternal night is the skirt of the goddess Night, and Lady Night weaves the skirt with secrets, and the stars serve as her embellishments. Now it seems that there is some truth in the rumors. While admiring this mysterious scenery that he had never seen before, Ryan couldn't help but express his heartfelt admiration. Then you will be disappointed. There won't be anything else here except night. The tone was the same as before, but this time, Nyx's heart moved slightly. She planned to find out later who said, the skirt of the goddess of the night first. The gods may not be very clear. In the field of fate, her body is the symbol of destiny, and the field that the mother of night is best at is misfortune. Moving forward, walking in the land of eternal night, Ryan felt a sense of peace from within. In his eyes, this place is a quiet and beautiful garden. The roadside is covered with exotic flowers and plants that are rarely seen in the outside world. Apart from the dim sky, it is no different from the ground. Even in addition to plants, there are many lives hidden under the night. Ryan could feel that it was the soul that once originated from his hand. In the land of eternal night, those strange beings seem to have become godlike existences. They exude different powers such as fear, silence, and doom, and even a little chaos mixed in. The former is the manifestation of Ms. Ye's authority, and the latter is the remnant of the original creation. Without the guidance of Nyx, any person or god who enters the land of eternal night will never see a shred of light. They can only groping forward in the night, and then they are turned into fertilizer by the flowers and plants that look normal but have no idea what is inside, or are eaten up by the creatures wandering here. Even if they are gods, they may not die, but eternal sleep is no different from death. Every ounce of divine power they gained from their priesthood is drained away, and they can never wake up again. He didn't know how long he had been walking, but Ryan could feel that the chaos around him was slowly getting smaller and smaller until it completely disappeared, and the power of the night was stronger than ever. Even gradually, Ryan felt closer to the world. That is, destiny and cause and effect, inevitable number, and natural order. The three-phase incarnation of Lady Yi, or in other words, the three-phase incarnation of chaos in this world. Among the original gods, the night was born last, but it also carries more preferences in the world. Until a certain moment, Nyx, who was leading the way, suddenly stopped.
"Here we are," she said.
"Arrive?" Somewhat puzzled, Ryan asked, "What about the embryo of the sleeping god you mentioned?" "Oh, isn't it right there?" Pouting his lips, Nyx pointed forward. Ryan looked over. There, in the middle of the purple grass, a huge white sleep flower was swaying slowly. The embryo of the god of sleep is not a giant cocoon, and there is no trace of flesh and blood. A flower is all it has. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 60 Assimilation. Is this the embryo of the god of sleep? Somewhat unexpectedly, Ryan didn't expect it to look like this. Of course. So please remember not to pretend to understand in the future, Your Highness Ryan. With a slight snort, Nyx explained, "You don't think that the original god's original conception is the same as that of a normal god. Conception is just a way of saying it to make it easier to understand, but it is actually the same as when we were born. The power related to Khaos gathered and turned into something tangible, and then we were born. As he spoke, Nyx pointed at the white flower. It looks a bit like the white sleeping flower from the previous life, but judging from the size, it is as big as several people hugging each other. When it fully blooms, the true God will be born. And the nutrients it absorbs when it grows is the power of my body. Nodding, Ryan probably understood. No wonder they also gave birth to children. The Titan gods had no sense of decline in power when they gave birth to children, but Gaia fell from being the most powerful ancient god to the last. This is not only because of the division of priesthood, but also because gods conceived without intercourse will directly draw the power of the mother's body. Therefore, they are born powerful, unlike those who come after them, and there is a process of growth and development. The 12 Titans were caught between the two transformations, so they were born with power but not as powerful as their uncles. That's it. Ryan understood somewhat. So the world once invested its power into the earth and used the most suitable environment to warm it. When the time is right, they will transform into gods. This is Uranus and the origin of his two younger brothers. When the 5 primitive gods were conceived, there was no matter in the world, so everything was seen by Ryan. But how Gaia gave birth to the 3 gods, he really wasn't sure. Of course, the respected prophet would not really think that the earth given birth to the sky and the ocean. With a chuckle, Nyx seemed to feel a little better. Shaking his head, Ryan felt that he was already used to Nyx's way of speaking. In comparison, he was more interested in this special way of conceiving a god. In the past, because there was no creature with strong enough essence to bear the priesthood, he delayed in continuing the enfeoffment. But now he might be able to try this method of origin gestation. You can't do it, or it's very difficult to do it. Seemingly understanding Ryan's thoughts, Nyx reminded him. In fact, this kind of behavior is harmful to the breeding environment and the world itself.
Small.
If it's not that the harm outweighs the benefits, why should Uranus be crowned the God King for creating a new way of birthing gods? If we give him another 30,000 or 50,000 years, maybe he can really take that step and become the first acquired great power to fight against the power of fate. Power is power and person is person. Whether it is the personified twin gods of the Dark Knight or Uranus at his peak, their power is even greater than that of the newly promoted great god, but the gap in personality means that they are destined to be unable to do many things. Destiny is one of them. Although confrontation and victory cannot be confused, it is ultimately a breakthrough from 0 to 1. Just like there is no shortage of mortals in later generations who can defeat gods, but gods are immortal. They can defeat gods thousands of times, but as long as they lose once, everything is over. I understand, but I will still give it a try. Nodding with a smile, Ryan continued, "Practice is the only criterion for testing truth. I don't really trust Khaos's judgment." After curling his lips, Nyx did not continue to dissuade him. She just mentioned that Ryan must hit the wall before looking back, so let him try. Now, she wants to quickly solve the problem of this divine embryo. You can try it if you want, but now we're in the right place. Use your method to let this embryo continue to gestate and be born. Although I have separated from the main body, the feeling of being constantly being sucked out of power is still uncomfortable. Okay, remember to release the barrier between the land of eternal night and the outside world. If you want to assimilate it, the power of the spiritual world is indispensable. Nodding, Ryan stepped forward. The divine body in front of him gave him a wonderful feeling, or in other words, the divinity itself was so wonderful. It cannot be simply described as spiritual or material. To be precise, it has both, and it seems to have neither. If it must be described, Ryan feels that divine flesh and blood tends to be in a quantum state. If you observe it the way you observe matter, it will exhibit the characteristics of all matter. If you observe it in the same way as observing the spirit, it will take on all the characteristics of the spirit. The subjective will of the gods is the only observer that can make this wave function, collapse in the direction they want. At this moment, the sleeping flower in front of Ryan exists in a material state. The first step in assimilating it is to let it transform itself into a spiritual state. Stretching out his hand, Ryan tried to touch the petals of the embryo in front of him. But soon, he stopped this behavior because he faintly felt the traces of the world's will. It was born by the will of the world and is naturally protected by Khaos. Only when it actively lets go of its restrictions can you get in touch with it. On the side, watching Ryan's movements, Nyx reminded him, "If you take the initiative, that's easy to do." With a slight nod, Ryan's will merged with the spirit world that had already enveloped the underworld. Nyx released the restrictions of the land of eternal night and time, and the spiritual power followed Ryan's path and directly reached the vicinity of the embryo. So the next moment, the source of sleep and dreams that had been eaten and wiped appeared in Ryan's hands. As if sensing the same origin, the big white flower immediately swayed, and the power surrounding it disappeared. Seeing this, Ryan did not rush to send the source power that had been transformed by the spirit world. Instead, he used his divine power to quietly pull the embryo of the sleeping god into the dreamland. In the dream, the embryo's hazy consciousness seems to feel that the surrounding environment has changed, and its current state is incompatible with it. So, driven by instinct, the characteristics of its divine body began to change, from the material state to the spiritual state. Outside, Ryan looked at the sleeping flower, which began to change simultaneously. He no longer hesitated and injected the source power emerging from his hand into it. Feeling that the breath of the same origin was connected to him, the sleeping flower greedily sucked it up even though it was still in a dream, becoming a part of its own priesthood. However, with the integration of the source power, the big flower that transformed into a spiritual state did not notice at all that it was also being assimilated by the spiritual world. For Ryan, the source power he gave was like a godhead. Not only did it not affect his control over the relevant fields, it was also equivalent to installing a plugin. For the embryo before us, there is no such thing as assimilation. After all, it was just a change from the boss named Khaos to the boss named Spirit World. It had no independent consciousness and could not feel the difference at all. Only the power of the world that originally surrounded the embryo once again violently turbulent, but neither the object it protected nor Ryan paid attention to its intentions. P.S. Regarding the issue of gods and bodies, you can refer to the wave-particle duality of high school physics. If you really can't understand it, just treat it as one body of gods, spirit, energy, and can be transformed into each other. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 60, One Day God King. This is the consequence of not having wisdom. Feeling the world's will that was gradually becoming more active but unable to be stopped because of the embryo's active cooperation, Nyx couldn't help but mock. She had never had a good impression of the will of Khaos, which always caused trouble to the primitive gods. Maybe, but if it really becomes conscious, I'm afraid you will miss it again. And if eternal, supreme, omniscient, and omnipotent ruler, this is much more terrifying than any god king. While assimilating the embryo in front of him, Ryan still had time to chat with Ms. Yi. If nothing else happens, he will stay here for at least hundreds of years. Assimilating a true god for the first time is not an easy task. He had also tried to take it back to the spiritual world for hatching, but the root system of the flower in front of him had already penetrated deeply into the land of eternal night. Taking it away by force would only cause greater harm to Ms. Ye's body. It's okay now. The power of the spiritual world flows into the eternal night along the gap that Nyx released. The war in the outside world is about to begin, and it will take place in the sky. This is a dispute about the master of the starry sky. The topic was changed directly. Obviously, Nyx didn't want any eternal god king either. She looked through the night, and as expected she saw preparations for war in the starry sky. About hundreds of years ago, Khaos's second and third sons were born one after another. The second son, Pallas, is the god of war. As for his third son, he is the god of destruction, Perses, who is in charge of material destruction. Not long ago, under the instruction of Thob, the king of gods and the god of light, he married the second daughter of Khaos and Thob, the goddess of the star, Asteria. It is precisely because of this that the situation in the starry sky has become increasingly tense. My guess is that Khaos sided with Cronus, and he and Phoebe blocked Thea. In an unhurried tone, Ryan guessed casually. The silence of Ms. Yi on the side undoubtedly proved that his guess was right. Although the war has not yet begun, the movements of several Titan gods cannot be hidden from Nyx. Unlike the earth and ocean, Khaos does not have starry sky as the main god of the priesthood, but Nyx, who controls the night, can barely count half of it. This is normal. Khaos is indeed not interested in power. He is the god of lightless celestial bodies. He may be contaminated by the source of darkness. Just like you and Erebus, he doesn't like to move around. But Phoebe is different. She actually does not have a complete domain that belongs to her own control. Her light comes from the power she received from her sister when she was born, and her body comes from the sun. In the priesthood, under the influence of instinct, she longed to be as radiant as her sister, but she was also a little jealous. So, do you think that the war in the stars will be decided soon? Nyx didn't pay attention to these in the past, or in other words, as a primitive god, and under the system of Khaos, she really had nothing to pay attention to. After all, the gods in the outside world are no match for her, and there is no way for the gods in this world to practice and advance. She didn't know what she could do besides becoming one with her body and blurring her perception of time. No, this war is not going to end anytime soon. Shaking his head slightly, Ryan said calmly, "The starry sky is different from the earth. Not only does it have an area, but it also has different levels. This is destined to determine its victory or defeat in the short term. Besides, for well-known reasons, Cronus himself will not take action. At most, he will send his own goddess, and in the starry sky, Rhea and Cleos may not have the advantage they imagined. Just wait and see." Ryan concluded in the end, "If there are no accidents, there will be no winner in this battle in the sky before reaching a real turning point. It will last for at least 1,000 years, and because of the God Kings his energy will be affected, and the God Lord Ocean, who just showed signs of reconciliation, will once again have conflicts with his uncle. What about you?" Looking at the chattering god in black, Nyx couldn't help but ask, "Where do you stand in this dispute?" Faced with Ms. Ye's slightly strange gaze, Ryan raised his head and glanced at the sky. 3,000 years, maybe 2,000 years. When the time is right, I will personally hand the knife to Cronus. The intuition of fate tells me that when the God King occupies the starry sky, the urging from the laws of this world will no longer be able to stop it. The 6 sons of God will come to the world one after another, and the war will be rekindled between the 2 mountains. As for me, with a slight smile, Ryan looked in the direction of the abyss again. Tartarus, the only complete primordial god. He silently absorbed all the chaos in the world, and even the myths of later generations have little record of him. But this is a real world, or a world where the trajectory of fate becomes increasingly deflected. After Zeus ascended the throne, there were not many so-called myths that could be believed. As for me, how about being a god king for a day? Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of Nyx's expression, but Ryan had no intention of explaining. He only has a guess about some things now. After all, it involves 2 god kings and the unique mythological system of chows. He doesn't know whether his idea can succeed. But it doesn't matter if you give it a try. Where you begin, you end. That's what he told Cronus, but the reverse was also true. Compared to Shinkong, I'm more worried about your sister. Sighing and thinking about the life Aquarius, Ryan still didn't believe that Mother Earth would really bear that loss silently. Not all gods put pros and cons first. In other words, among the gods of chaos who have no way forward, those who follow their own desires account for the majority. Gaia is the one who not only has ideas but also has abilities. On Mount Odiles, the palace of the God King. When Ryan transformed the divine embryo in the land of eternal night, the god of west wind, had returned to the holy mountain. Cronus sat at the table and chair, with Zephyrus, the god of wind, in front of him. Not long ago, the being whom he arranged to go to Hades conveyed key information to him. Ryan left the spirit world, but did not go to the surface. At the same time, the true gods of the spirit world who often appeared in the starry sky also returned to the underworld. You mean, the Mother of Night and the Lord of the spirit world met, and then rushed to the land of eternal night together? After thinking for a moment, Cronus confirmed to the god of wind again. Although he didn't say it directly before, the god king actually just wanted the other party to monitor the movements of the gods in the underworld at the gate of the underworld. Even Ryan is secondary. The god of skylight and the goddess of day, who also have corresponding priesthoods, are the real targets of his defense. After all, these two gods had the idea of migrating to the starry sky in the early years. Cronus could not guarantee whether they would stand with Hyperion, so he sent the god of west wind to guard the underworld in advance. But who would have thought that Khaos actually overfulfilled the task? Cronus was really surprised. This god of the west wind, who had barely entered the realm of inferior divine power, was so brave that he dared to follow the Lord of the spirit world and Lady Night under the light of the dark moon. Even he himself might not dare to do such a thing. You did a good job. Then Cronus said in a gentle tone, "It's just that I still need to confirm again. Zephyros, are you sure they didn't discover your existence?" All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 62 Urging. I'm not so sure, Your Majesty. After hesitating for a moment, Khaos still didn't dare to speak out. Facing the great Lord of Eternal Night, I can't guarantee that she didn't notice me, but the Mother of Night probably didn't pay attention to my existence. In fact, the god of West Wind felt that there was a high probability that he would be discovered by Ms. Yi early on, but the other party did not pay attention to him. After all, in the eyes of the gods of Khaos, the two gods of the dark night are all gods who are like being. Except for a few existences, they didn't even bother to pay attention to their children. So Zephyros felt that it was completely normal for him to be ignored by this Nyx. As for Ryan, the god of West Wind didn't think he could discover him. Perhaps in other myths, simple physical changes are easy to see through, but the gods of Khaos do not have this ability. Transforming into animals or dead objects to avoid the pursuit of other gods was a daily drama of the Olympian gods in later generations, and it was tried and true. As for the Lord of the spirit world, I have been wandering in the underworld for hundreds of years. Since he didn't expel me at the beginning, I guess he didn't find any trace of me. Foamshen is still very confident in his authority. In terms of combat power, he is not ranked among the gods, but in terms of hiding his body, the main gods of several major pantheons may not be able to detect his existence. Is this so? After pondering for a moment, the god king didn't know whether he believed it or not. While thinking, he tapped his fingers lightly on the table, making a rhythmic sound. Zephyros, continue to watch at the edge of the land of eternal night. If anyone comes out or other gods make any changes, remember to tell me immediately. The god of the west wind was shocked when he heard this. It's okay to let him go to the underworld. He feels that he is still well hidden. But running to the edge of the land of eternal night, who knows if Ms. Yi will regard her as a provocation? His Majesty. I know the risk is very high, but I just let you go and have a look. If you see His Highness Nyx, you can retreat immediately. As long as you do this well, I will recognize you as the god of the four winds in the name of the god king. The first. Seeing the sudden change in Zephyros' expression, the god king promised. In Khaos, there is no balance between earth, water, wind, and fire, and the power of wind is vaguely the weakest. What's more, the four wind gods only represent the wind on the ground. In this era where only moderate divine power is barely considered strong, and only strong divine power can influence the situation, Cronus believes that even if this trip is dangerous, Zephyros will not refuse him. As you command, Your Majesty." His face struggled for a moment, but after all, Khaos could not withstand the temptation. The four wind gods themselves do not represent all of the wind. According to his own judgment, the mid-level divine power is the limit of the West Wind priesthood. But if he can become the leader of the four wind gods recognized by the God King, and even continue to expand the scope of authority of West Wind through the God King's decrees in the future, then he is not hopeless in the field of medium divine power. And in Khaos's mind, since the Mother of Night ignored him at first, he probably would be fine in the future. Other gods are even less likely to find traces of him. After receiving the order, the god of West Wind immediately turned into the wind and flew away. Looking at Khaos's leaving figure, the God King didn't know what he was thinking. "It seems that you have made up your mind." In the quiet palace, a voice suddenly sounded. "You mean you want me to turn dreams into the cornerstone of this interface?" Even after its main body is formed, it has the ability to absorb dreams on its own and turn it into a part of itself. Feeling the interface authority open to him, Hypnos asked. "Yes." Ryan nodded. "Dreams are based on reality, but are transcendent from reality. They naturally symbolize the process of order transforming into chaos. Dreams that are closer to the real world should be placed closer to the second level of the spiritual world. Dreams that are too bizarre should be constructed close to the fourth level of the spiritual world. Even the dreams of some powerful creatures have power in themselves. When they are constructed as part of the spiritual world, under the influence of the spiritual breath, some special spiritual lives can be born." As he said that, Ryan's thoughts were a little wandering. For a moment, he thought of some dark fairy tales he had seen in his previous life. It is impossible for serious fairy tales to exist. After all, in dreams, people's behavioral logic is closer to arbitrary. Coupled with a chaotic time and space in the spiritual world, Ryan doesn't think any good spirits can be born naturally here. "I will obey your command, Father God." Lowering his head slightly, Hypnos softly expressed his submission. Although the level below the fifth level of the spirit world seemed a bit narrow for a true god-level being like him, he had no intention of rejecting it. Hypnos is not a being like Eclipus. He knows how to restrain his power and overcome his instincts. What's more, he didn't feel at all that Ryan was consulting with him. "Very well, then do it." Lyanna. Nodding, Ryan called out to the goddess of the moon. "I'm here, Your Highness." As before, the black clothes turned from virtual to real, and Lyanna quickly responded to Lion's call. "He is the new god I created, Hypnos. In the future, he will be responsible for building the third spiritual world." "She is Lyanna, my deputy. If you have anything you can ask her while I'm away." The third quarter moon hangs in the sky. Today, it is the turn of the third spiritual moon to illuminate the outside world. After introducing the two of them respectively, Ryan also felt a little emotional when he looked at the goddess of the moon who had been diligently taking care of the spiritual world for him over the past few hundred years. Even when he was still in the spirit world, he was often busy operating rules and adjusting source power. In fact, matters in the spirit world have always been handled by Lyanna. Most beings in the spirit world have never even seen Ryan. Just like what they call him, the great ancient will of the spiritual world. In their view, Ryan's existence is just a legend, and Lyanna is the ruler of the spiritual world. Lyanna. The goddess in black dress raised her head, and she met Ryan's eyes. For thousands of years, some of the elements, origins absorbed by the spiritual world are gathering and forming in his hands, intertwined with spirituality to form a multifaceted crystal. The power of element is very special, and it does not seem to have a superior priesthood in the true sense. Just like the earth element, it is also affected by the clergy such as earth, mountain, celestial bodies, magic, and witchcraft, but it is not completely subordinate to anyone. And what's very interesting is that although in Khaos, darkness is stronger than light, life is far better than death, and earth, water, wind, and fire are not equal, but this is not the case with elemental powers. They face each other, maintaining a dynamic balance, and seem to be completely unaffected by the strength of authority. And magic power is a wonderful acquired product. It comes from the result of intelligent life refining elements with spirit, and its power itself is not constant. The purer the spirit of existence that refines it, the more powerful the magic power becomes. This is the power that originally belonged to the owner of Mingyu, but now it will be subordinate to the new owner of Mingyu. Liana, this is magic, Ryan said with a smile. It will become your moonlight. Strictly speaking, although Liana was previously called the goddess of the underworld, she actually controlled only the concept of the underworld. Because the dark moon does not really exist at this time, it is the projection of the spiritual world on the underworld, and its moonlight is also illuminated by the 7 quarter moons in the spiritual world in turn. But from now on, the dark moon will also have its own moonlight. Serving you is the meaning of my existence. As the new multifaceted crystals integrated into her body, Liana's aura became much thicker. Her divine power has not changed, but the upper limit has been raised again. Not surprisingly, as the underworld further expands, the threshold for powerful divine power will also open to her. Even judging from the special nature of Hades in the underworld, Liana may soon enter the realm of powerful divine power. At the same time, the originally cold light in the underworld also changed. The silvery white light turned into a dark purple hue, and invisible power spread. Under such light, some corpses that were brought to the underworld but died due to various reasons trembled faintly. Gradually, they seemed to give birth to new souls, which burned in the form of flames. Soul fire, that's their name. When the fire goes out, it means that the rebirth of the undead also comes to an end. Seeing that many people have opinions on the level in the article, I will modify the way of expression and explain it in detail. First of all, regarding the issue of strength, I have made it very clear before. The upper limit of the priesthood level and the increase in divine power are not equivalent. Light may not be weaker than sun, but the two titans upgrade at completely different speeds. This is inconsistent with this authority. Performance in the world. Therefore, the protagonist's promotion is the slowest before the first generation of humans is born, accelerates after the second generation, and reaches the maximum speed after the third generation. It will be faster than the speed with faith. Gods rise faster than the protagonist, actually only exists in the narration, and will not be real. Happened. However, since it caused misunderstandings among many people, it was probably because there was something wrong with my expression, so I simply deleted this narration, sorry. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 67 Secret Talk. Fire is the original one in the elemental realm under spirituality. Therefore, the new consciousness of the dead souls is also preserved in the fire of the soul. Although the undead have the word spirit, most of them are not spiritual bodies. They are essentially lives that exist in the material world. It's just that the bodies of normal life are living, while they are dead. But from another perspective, perhaps in the eyes of the undead, the bodies of life on earth are dead, and theirs might be alive. As time goes by, the number of undead gradually increases. Not only the corpses of life, but also some places with dense negative energy will give birth to life under the light of the dark moon. A few intelligent beings bathe in the moonlight, and they regard Pluto moon as the source of life. The undead call it the primordial moon, because in their vague memories, there is a moon on the earth, but it was born later than in the underworld. And most importantly, only the primordial moon can reverse life and death and bring them back to life. The initial celestial worship began to spread, and the meager power of faith flowed to the underworld. Ryan has noticed changes in the outside world, but like humans before the Third Age, it was not the time for these mortal beings to appear. What's more, although the underworld has lost its ownership of the soul due to the existence of the spirit world, it is close to the source of chaos, darkness, and is naturally the home of the undead. Previously, because of the lack of power in the moonlight of Pluto, they could not really come alive. But now, with the participation of magic, the spirit can easily affect matter with the help of it, and the undead are born. It's just that when Ryan was arranging the affairs of the spiritual world that he had accumulated over the past 700 years, a secret conversation was going on in a place he didn't know, in a lightless realm. In the past, relying on the prophecy of the myth's trajectory, everything seemed to be within Ryan's expectation. He is like a player standing outside the world, gently pulling the strings of fate, and the gods are swung by him like puppets. But as the spiritual world becomes more powerful, uncertain fate interferes more and more with destiny. Even he himself doesn't know how many fateful trajectories have already changed. He saw some things, such as the changes in the starry sky, such as the changes in the God King, but in Ryan's eyes, these were all things he expected after all. But obviously, there were some things beyond his expectation, and the foreshadowing had been laid as early as the day when the spiritual world was opened. Not all gods will act the way they want. Some are due to pure emotions, while others are due to the desire to go further. The lightless realm, just like its name, here, everything is nothing. If there is not enough power, all things will not be able to maintain their existence here, because pure darkness will swallow all things. But for the two people talking at this moment, the danger of the lightless realm is just a joke. Gaia, you saw it. At the edge of the realm, beside the emerald green figure, a gentle and magnetic middle-aged male voice slowly came. If you just listen to the voice, I'm afraid everyone will think that this is a scholar with poetry and books. Yes, Erebus. He created another god and snatched it from the world. The spirit world. Through this interface, he can do many things beyond your imagination. Looking at the sudden change of moonlight in the sky, the woman in the green skirt did not hide her emotions, or she had never been good at hiding her emotions. She didn't like Ryan always had. Thousands of years ago, when the life Aquarius, with most of its origin missing, was returned to the hands, this dislike turned into anger. At the first moment, Gaia wanted to take revenge and go back. As long as she thinks about it, the earth and the underworld will move accordingly, and all life with the aura of the spiritual world will be targeted by a part of this world, and this is just the beginning. She wanted to imprison Ryan deep in the earth and make him pay for his actions after he handed over the power of half of his life. However, Erebus dissuaded her at that time. The Lord of Darkness told Gaia that when the spiritual world opens up, Ryan will no longer be imprisoned. He is one with the spiritual world, or in other words, he is the personification of the spiritual world, but unlike the original god, he is no longer the same as his original body. For Ryan, even if his external divine body is destroyed, he can be reborn in the interface at any time. The same is true for the lost part of life Aquarius. It has probably become a part of the spiritual world and can never be regained. Therefore, Gaia's anger, which had nowhere to vent, enveloped the earth for 3 years. But she did not give up revenge, but kept the anger brewing in her heart. You tried to persuade me then, Erebus, but you have called me here again today. If you have something on your mind, just say it. You have what you want, but I just want him to know that the earth is not so easy to deceive. The voice was a little cold, and Gaia knew that Erebus was not a kind person. The other person probably wants her to do something that only she can do. But Gaia didn't care. In later generations, she can help Zeus for the giants, or she can fall out with Zeus because of the titans who are imprisoned in the abyss. Throughout the process, she seemed to gain nothing and instead lost a lot of power. But this is Mother Earth. She rarely cares about interests when doing things and cares more about temporary emotions. As long as she can breathe out, she is willing to pay some extra costs. Haha, don't say that, my good sister. Maybe I just want to help you? On the side, listening to Gaia's words, Erebus smiled. He seemed to be in a good mood today. But Mother Earth's face was still cold. If the other party really cared simply, he would have done so long ago when Auranas was still around. But he sat back and watched himself face the pain. The so-called concern is simply a joke. On the other side, seeing Gaia not paying attention, Erebus didn't take it seriously either. As the other party said, the reason why he found the other party was naturally because there was something he couldn't do on his own. In the field of life, although the Earth Mother only relies on the power of accompanying artifacts, she is by no means beyond the reach of the Dark Lord. You know Gaia, thousands of years ago, right here on the Earth, the gods created life. His right hand crossed the darkness in front of him, and the life in the underworld appeared in front of the two ancient gods. They were all created on that day and brought here. But the irony is that they are already dead at this time, and what is active is the new life born from the corpses. They used your life Aquarius to give bodies to mortal things, and Ryan used well water to give souls to mortal things. Not surprisingly, the well that spreads souls is an artifact shaped by the source of life. It is the same as a life. Aquarius are originally one body. Yes, Gaia said, I don't need you to remind me how he used things that originally belonged to me to give his soul in front of me. You misunderstood. I'm not laughing at you. In fact, I'm just emphasizing that in the realm of life, the body and soul of mortal things actually intersect. Shaking his head, Erebus explained. But no matter how Gaia heard it, he was just describing his failure in another way. So, what did you find? Gaia was already a little impatient. She had never known that her brother had such a bad character. Don't worry, my sister. With a chuckle, Erebus looked at the undead wandering in the screen and said slowly, I just discovered some secrets about life through the artifact of 2 points. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 68, Lurking. You know, Gaia, all things need nutrients to grow. The world draws strength from its own cycle and void, and the gods draw strength from their corresponding symbols through the priesthood. The transformation of one quality into another, equivalent exchange, is the unchanging law of the world. So, listening to Erebus's words, Gaia frowned and said, Of course I know this. Even the plants I created need to draw nutrients from the earth. You don't need to teach me this. What does what you're talking about have to do with life and soul? Smiling slightly, Erebus still seemed unhurried. Perhaps due to the influence of the priesthood, the Dark Lord likes this feeling of secrets being revealed little by little. Really? Then tell me, my sister, plants draw nutrients from the earth, but where do the lives created by the gods get the power to maintain their existence? Didn't you see? Gaia thought this was another meaningless question. They eat plants or each other. They drink water to promote the balance of elements in their bodies. Is there anything wrong with that? Of course not. Erebus said briefly, If life cannot be divided, then I think this is normal. But since the body and soul can exist independently, why can one life eat other lives? What about the body and its soul that does not eat the souls of other living beings? If the soul does not have the process of eating, where does it get nutrients from? Gaia was silent. She already vaguely understood what the other party wanted to say. The nourishment for the growth of the body is water and plants, but the nourishment for the growth of the soul is the body itself. It doesn't need anything else, Erebus said with a deep look in his eyes. Under the warmth of the body, it directly borrows the intersection of the two in the life field and directly obtains power from the former. And as time goes by, the body will develop, mature, and age, and so will the soul, but the latter cycle is longer than the former. So, in the end, they will come back together and become part of that world, and you know what that means? It means that every soul is a seed, and the material world is the soil where it germinates. When a life body comes to an end, the fruit called soul matures. Earth Mother said slowly. She was also a little shocked. Khaos draws power from chaos, transforms it into ownerless power, and then continuously improves the world. The spiritual world uses the present world as chaos, absorbs power from it, and constantly improves itself. Faintly, Gaia seemed to see the day at the end of time when the spiritual world and the real world would keep pace with each other. From the perspective of chaos itself, It is difficult to say whether this is good or bad, because the power of spirituality itself is also strengthening the effect of circulation within the world. But this is certainly not good news for this world that prefers materiality and order. Just as the world is getting stronger, the power of Mother Earth is getting weaker and weaker. Gaia understands this very well. No, suddenly Mother Earth reacted. With these beings and their weak nature, even if the number expands tens of millions or even more, even if they are spread all over the earth, this is nothing to Khaos. It's nothing. Stop being alarmist, Erebus. What exactly do you want me to do? He raised his eyebrows and looked at his sister's reaction. The Lord of Darkness was still a little disappointed. When he first discovered this, he was really shocked, but later he realized that absorbing power in this way was simply like scooping water from the sea with a basin, and it was an ocean where big rivers were constantly flowing. Unless the number of intelligent beings is in the hundreds of millions, and unless their life level can be raised by more than one level, it sounds good, but actually has no meaning. The power derived from the self-operation of this world in one day is more than what the souls of today's mortal objects can transform in 100 years. It's simple. Next time, he said, when this batch of life dies and the next time life is created, I want you to add this to the mix. Stretching out his hand, a shapeless black energy swayed in Erebus's palm. At first, Earth Mother did not recognize it, but soon she realized its essence. That is darkness. In terms of quantity, it is very weak, so weak that even the power of the regional gods is stronger than it. But it is also pure, because it comes directly from the essence of the original god. Dark Erebus, I don't care about being a knife for you, but I hope you can think of a more reasonable way. I can combine it with the original liquid in the life Aquarius. But if life is directly exposed to the source of power, madness is their only end. Do you think he can't see such an obvious change? A little disappointed, Gaia didn't expect that her brother would come up with such a method. So, I ask you to dilute it as much as possible, Erebus said calmly. Just like a drop of divine power sinking into the ocean, as long as the amount is small enough, there will be no problem. Of course, due to its nature, the thinking of living beings may be distorted, but their sanity will not be completely destroyed. Just find a reason. For example, you created humans with only positive emotions before, and now you have to go the other way and create humans with more negative emotions. Do you need me to teach you about this? Did I understand, but can you help me deal with him? Mother Earth nodded hesitantly, but was a little confused. She could tell that the other party was using this method to infiltrate his power into the spirit world, but what threat could this pose to Ryan? This little bit of power would not be taken seriously by any god with medium power or above, let alone Ryan, who is in the spirit world. In the outside world, divine power limits his power. But in the spirit world, the interface itself is his power. Don't you understand, my dear sister? God is immortal. So if you want to deal with him, you must first understand him and how to deal with his world. Erebus was speechless. Although he didn't understand the meaning of simply venting his anger, he still endured it in order to get Gaia's help. After all, he really knows nothing about the realm of life. When my source power entered the spiritual world, I didn't expect them to come back, but anyway, it's just a tiny bit. The soul of a mortal thing can only carry so much. Ryan harvests power through the soul, then he will definitely return the soul to its origin. This must be done through the origin of the spiritual world. This is my purpose. I want a part of me to come into contact with the roots of the spiritual world. Erebus looked directly at his sister. Then I can know how the spiritual world was opened. No one would tell the truth to an uninvited visitor, Gaia, so I never believed Ryan's explanation to me. I don't want him to tell me anything. I just want to see it with my own eyes. Of course, at that point, Ryan will definitely notice my behavior. He will intercept those sources of power, but I will get the hope of getting rid of Khaos, and you can also know his weaknesses. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 69 Crack. Looking at his sister, who was gradually moved, the Lord of Darkness couldn't help but sneered in his heart. Weakness? Let's not talk about whether there are weaknesses in the world. Even if there are weaknesses, Erebus will never tell them. He himself also wanted to take this step. If he could successfully create the world, he would not be able to cover it up in time. So how could he allow others to know the secret? Anyway, Ryan is a smart man. Even if the other party suffers a loss, he will definitely not tell it.
He has even thought about it.
If he can open up the world, even though he will conflict with Ryan and compete with him for the power that he still has no owner, they may not be able to become allies in fighting against the present world. On the side, for some reason, after listening to his brother's explanation, Gaia's first reaction was not the ingenuity of the other party's calculations or the rewards after success, but the feeling that either Ryan or Erebus seemed to be the same as Khaos. The gods are a bit out of place. In her impression, the gods would fight if they could defeat them, and if they couldn't defeat them, they would recruit allies to fight. At most, they would use some tactics to recruit helpers or make sneak attacks or something like that. A method like Erebus's is indeed rare. I will. Earth Mother finally said, Kronos doesn't want to create the second generation of humans, so I will take the lead. He has ignored my wishes and is still unwilling to release Oranides and Cyclops from the abyss, so I don't care what he thinks. I will do what you ask, but whether it turns out to be what you want in the end has nothing to do with me. Hearing this, Erebus nodded, and he finally convinced Gaia. He actually couldn't guarantee that this attempt would be successful, but this was the only way he could think of. Soon, Gaia left with that power, and the Lord of Darkness, after watching the Earth Mother leave, stood at the edge of the domain, looking at the land of eternal night that enveloped the other half of the underworld. He actually wants to join forces with Nyx more than Gaia. If the power of Secret can also join in, then everything will be safe. But he also knew that if his sister really had limited means, then her sister was simply not interested in these things. She doesn't have that strong desire to become stronger. If she could even stay alone forever. It's good to be able to escape the control of Khaos, but it doesn't matter if you can't. Anyway, as a primitive god, as long as he is not completely personified like Gaia, he will not completely fall into the realm of great divine power, no matter what. Erebus understood this idea very well, because he thought the same way a long time ago. If Ryan hadn't appeared, he would probably have stayed alone in the lightless realm, sitting and watching the changes in the outside world until the end of time. I hope it will succeed. But if I fail, I can accept it. As an Eternal, I still have many opportunities. Shaking his head slightly, for Erebus, the biggest cost of failure in action was that it would arouse Ryan's vigilance. But when you act, there are consequences. In any case, the Dark Master is ready to have one more enemy. Even after that source of power is touched, whether he achieves the result he wants or not, he will regard Ryan as his opponent. But before that, he still had something to do.
Come trattino.
With a clear drink, the next moment, in his own body, Erebus truly mobilized the power of great divine power. Under the power of the ancient god of creation, everything that happened today was swallowed up by darkness and turned into the secret itself. Even fate was excluded to a certain extent. Call. For some people with asthma, even in their own bodies, exerting this level of power is quite a burden. Pure strength will not bring pressure to him, but the personality that can interfere with destiny to a certain extent is the real difficulty. I hope the harvest will be worthy of my efforts. Standing on the edge of the lightless realm, Erebus began to look forward to the results of his plan. But at this time, he actually didn't know that the souls of the first and second generations of humans would not actually become part of the spiritual world. As he said himself, using the soul to draw power is like using a basin to scoop water from the sea. Before the arrival of the Third Age, the birth of female humans and the true circulation of souls, Lane had no intention of harvesting the power of any soul. That simple and crude method was not in line with the aesthetics of sustainable development. However, due to a strange combination of circumstances, Erebus will indeed get what he wants, the experience of world opening that he has been thinking about. However, That was not the part related to the spiritual world, but an old friend who was accidentally tricked, and a junior who was not taken seriously by him. Since Ryan returned to the spirit world, another 500 years have passed. In these 500 years, the situation in Khaos has changed rapidly. The war in the sky is coming to an end, although Kronos has suspended his offensive due to Ryan's return and the changes in the moon. But after decades passed, it was discovered that there was no other movement in the underworld, and the war was rekindled. Nowadays, more than 70% of the starry sky has expressed its surrender to the God King, and the star gods who are in those star fields have also defected. The remaining place, except for the domain left to Khaos, the god of celestial bodies, is the only place left for Hyperion. Only in the area near the sun, the power of the sun god was unprecedentedly strong, so the queen and the weather god had to slow down there. On the other side, on the sea, the Poseidons also experienced the power of strategy for the first time. It is difficult to determine the winner in the battle between powerful divine powers, but under the command of Métis, the oceanic god system has made rapid progress in other places. They avoided the battlefield of the four main gods and squeezed the domain of the offshore god everywhere. Several of Pontos's heirs were exhausted, but they were always one step slower. If it weren't for the gradual end of the war in the starry sky, it would be difficult for Pontos to maintain even the last part of the battle for the unclaimed sea. After this incident, the name of Wisdom Métis resounded throughout the land and ocean. In view of the consistent tradition of the oceanic god system, many gods came to express their feelings to her, but the goddess of wisdom rejected them one by one. She would rather stay with the golden humans who survived the god war than the gods. She gave them the hydrology she created to let them understand the currents and climate on the sea. Human beings on the ocean have therefore left traces completely different from those on the earth. Under such circumstances, in the starry sky, the second daughter of Khaos, the daughter of Asteria, the god of meteors, and Perses, the god of material destruction, was born. It was precisely because of her birth that the originally harmonious cooperative relationship between Khaos and the god king suddenly cracked. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 70. The Goddess Abandoned by the World. On Odil's mountain, in the palace of the God King, the gods sat in a circle, and the atmosphere was a bit depressing. The newly born baby was placed on the long table in the center. In addition to the goddess Ryusei and her sister, both relatives of the baby girl were present. On the main seat, Cronus glanced at the gods present and couldn't help but secretly curse his luck. Obviously, in another 100 years, at most 200 to 300 years, when Khaos has stabilized his rule over most of the starry sky and allows the star gods to sort out the energy tide caused by the war between gods, his position as the god king will rise accordingly. But it happened that at this time, there was a problem between the god of weather and his greatest help. Khaos had no intention of participating in the disputes in the stars. Just like his priesthood, the god of lightless celestial bodies. He does not long for brilliance, but his wife Phoebe is different. Under the persuasion of the god of light, he joined the war in the name of his second daughter's relationship with Perses, the son of Khaos. Although they did not use their full strength, the Khaos couple only faced off against Thea, the goddess of light and vision, and did not even really fight, but this was the key to the outcome of this war. But it will all come to an end. If the current problem cannot be solved, even Phoebe will put away his little thoughts and cut off his lineage with the God King. Her name is Hecate, right? As if sensing the calm atmosphere and her husband's mood, Queen Rhea spoke to break the calm. She looks very cute. She will definitely be a beautiful goddess when she grows up. The queen finished speaking, but no one answered her. Cronus's heart gradually sank. He knew that even Khaos did not regret his actions at this moment. After all, the gods are immortal and divine power is eternal, but all this is a joke in front of chaos. Although they have not heard of any god being killed by the world, many of them have personally experienced the birth of a new god tearing apart the priesthood. Even at this moment, Even Cronus himself was not afraid of the baby girl in front of him. This is the first case of a god without a priesthood since the creation of Khaos. Even those regional gods whom Ryan jokingly calls divine power level 0 still have a river, a spring, a small celestial body, or a mountain as their domain. Although these objectively existing things are not as eternal as the rules of nature, they are enough to provide them with divine power to maintain the existence of the body, but the baby girl in front of them is different. Even as the god king, Cronus couldn't feel the connection between her and anything at all. A god without a source of divine power means that every time she uses up her power, she loses 1 point. With just a little slight injury, she might fall into eternal sleep just like the death of mortal things. It is precisely because of this that the true gods do not pay attention to the regional gods. Once the region they rely on is destroyed and the remaining divine power is exhausted, even if they're still alive in concept, it will be no different from death. The Hecate in front of her was even worse. Except for her immortal nature, she was no different from the humans on the earth. Khaos, she doesn't have a priesthood, but I can try to give her one. With a somewhat hesitant tone, Cronus looked at the god of celestial bodies. Although this kind of priesthood may only rely on the power of the god king, at least. This is not a matter of priesthood, Your Majesty the god king. This is a warning to the world. Perses suddenly spoke. The atmosphere in the field solidified instantly. Although everyone had this idea before, no one made it known, but Perses didn't care about it. As the god of material destruction and the biological father of Hecate, although he is still very weak now, he was originally expected to be in the realm of powerful divine power. But because of the instructions from his father and the god king, he was forced to get together with a meteor goddess with level 2 divine power. He didn't know that in the original myth, he would have been moved by the other party after a long period of contact. But now, perhaps because of his rebellion under oppression, he and Asteria hate each other. Your Majesty the god king, please forgive me. He looked at Cronus respectfully, but he said heartbreaking words. Maybe the world does not want a god king who rules everything. Just like the Heavenly Father, power will only bring pain, so he sent this child to tell us that all this is a mistake.
Boom.
Invisible oppression fell on him. That was not the power of the god king, but came from his father-in-law. The celestial god, who had always been taciturn, showed his power for the first time in front of the second-generation Titan. Perses' words were blocked in his mouth and could no longer be spoken. In Khaos, except for life and death, the power of the dark side is always stronger than the light side. Even Cronus suddenly realized that this silent brother had actually reached this point silently. Perses, I know you have always looked down on Asteria. Khaos's voice was not loud, but it was calm and powerful. Since you are so disgusted with your powerful wife, let's stop here. But from today on, you are no longer welcome in the starry sky.
O trattino.
The pressure dissipated, and Perses gasped for air. He looked at his father, but the weather god said nothing. Not to mention that he had made arrogant remarks directly in front of the god king before, but Khaos himself was far from being a match for Khaos. In terms of combat, weather only relies on part of the power of wind. Later generations of thunder expanded its scope, but it had an owner on the day it was born. As one of the few titans imprisoned in Tartarus, Khaos' fate was not without reason. Okay, I made a mistake just now, His Highness Khaos and His Majesty the God King, but... Looking around, Perses was not surprised to find no support. He calmed down a little and said calmly, but as the father of such a god of sin, I feel deeply uneasy. From now on, the affairs of the divine court will have nothing to do with me. I plan to go to the underworld for a stroll. Of course, it may also be the sea. The god of destruction was confident. After speaking, he turned around and left without paying any attention to the faces of the gods behind him. His eyes narrowed slightly, and the void froze. Cronus was somewhat angered by the arrogance of the god in front of him. But until the other party left the temple, he didn't say anything extra. If it were another time, he would never let the other party be so presumptuous. But at this moment, as the leader of the relationship between the other party and the goddess Ryusei, he still tolerated Persis. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 70, One Exile. A Warning to the World. The God King was warned by the world that in this world of chaos, which has accelerated its evolution because of Ryan, this is a reward that even Arenas has not had time to enjoy. At this moment, even Cronus himself couldn't help but start to wonder whether Khaos really didn't want him to interfere in the starry sky, so the world without subjective consciousness used such a special god to warn him. Even looking at the baby girl in front of him, Cronus wouldn't be sure if she was a god if it weren't for the fact that she didn't have a special appearance like a 100-armed giant. Cronus, I'm sorry, but I may have to live in seclusion for a while. In the stiff atmosphere, the god of celestial bodies spoke again. Hearing this, the god king's face changed slightly, and Fu Bai on the side also opened his mouth, but in the end, he remained silent. She longed to be glamorous, but she knew that the most fundamental reason why she was valued by the god king was her husband. Now that the other party has made a decision, she will no longer be stubborn. Your Majesty, she continued, as my husband said, I'm afraid we have to withdraw from this dispute. If you want to continue to take action against the stars, I suggest you make plans early. All right. After a moment of silence, Cronus took a deep breath and finally accepted it. After all, helping Cronus control the starry sky actually has no obvious benefits for Khaos. He was unwilling to risk upsetting the laws of the world by continuing, and the God King was not surprised. In addition to materials, in the field of spiritual numbers, 3 and 7 have special significance. Therefore, Hecate took half of 7 to symbolize the opposite side of matter in a reverse way. These are all efficient ways to use inferior materials. If the materials themselves have extraordinary powers, she doesn't need to be so complicated. After mixing the liquid, I waited for a while until the liquid in the small bowl mixed together and gradually turned into a strange color. From the shelf on the side, Hecate took out another pen made of animal hair and branches, which was used to draw symbols and patterns. No matter how many times I see it, I always feel that this color is a bit strange. Hecate complained as she looked at the colorful black in the bowl. But there is no way. Earth, water, wind, and fire, after being spiritually reconciled, represent 1/3 of chaos in the mysterious realm. So, it doesn't matter what color the liquid is originally. Anyway, it looks like this color anyway. Lifting up the pen and sipping a little of the liquid in the bowl, Hecate walked to the door. She drew a special symbol on the ground. When the words were written, an invisible force was aroused. It is said that this is a text that was differentiated from the original spiritual text. They are not as powerful as the source, but can therefore be exploited by mortals. And what Hecate wrote means isolation. Then, she wrote symbols representing connection, purification, and sublimation on the other 3 sides. When it was all over, she connected the 4 points with a thread and then stood in the center. Opening his mouth slightly, along with 2 special bites, the power in the 4-party runes was linked. There are 3 different kinds of rituals. One is the imitation of history, the other is the touching of rules, and the last one is to please those in high positions. Regardless of the other 2, what Hecate is preparing now is the second ceremony. As the ritual moves forward, the rules that have already been written are triggered. Vaguely, Hecate felt that a vast world appeared in her mental perception. That is the spiritual world, an interface composed of spiritual power. However, at this point in time, no existence can establish contact with the spiritual world without special methods. But obviously, Hecate's incomplete ritual was one of the special methods. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, eyes slightly closed, Hecate stirred up her spirit. She followed the mysterious induction with ease and connected to the vast spiritual world. Countless weird lights and shadows flashed by, and strange sounds sounded, but they were all purified one by one, and then isolated. When everything returned to calm, there were only 7 moon phases in Hecate's spiritual ocean, reflecting on her illusory spiritual body. At the same time, on the surface of Hecate's spiritual body, there were also rounds of moon phases emerging. However, only 4 are entities, and the remaining 3 are only virtual. I wrote this chapter to test the effect and see how many people are interested in this kind of occult content that focuses on wizards. If not, I wrote it as if it were a wizard. It is simple and crude, not so complicated. In fact, I have a headache writing this thing. After all, I understand mythology myself. As for occultism, I can only speak half full. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 75 Remarks on the Launch. It took 35 days to put Sahwa on the shelves. On the 1st of next month, Mingxin's first book will be on the shelves. The 2 volumes add up to 73 chapters, which can be considered as reaching the starting point average. I open V at night, so it is understandable that 1 chapter is missing during the day. After all, the speed of revising the manuscript is really limited, and I still have to write a 2,000-word testimonial, which is equivalent to an extra chapter. To be honest, the number of words in the testimonials is almost the same as the main text, which I didn't expect myself. So originally, tomorrow morning's update will be posted at night together with the remaining chapter today. I will add another 1,000 words, making it 3 chapters and 7,000 words. I'll see if I can write another chapter or 2 during the day tomorrow, and I'll have some fun with it after all. Let's talk about the speech itself. The whole process of writing until now is actually a bit unexpected for the author himself. Even my family members don't know that I am writing a novel. Seeing me facing the computer every day, they probably think that I am preparing for the exam. LOL. They don't know what level the author is now. Do you know? In short, mythology is a niche genre, and it is rare to find similar books in Chidian. The Death Book is already a rare masterpiece. Unfortunately, it is updated every year. I still felt it was a pity at first. Now that I have started writing by hand, the author has gradually realized how difficult it is. Greek mythology is no different than ancient world, which has been written in hundreds of books. Although it has a general trajectory, the timeline is unclear, there are many versions, and there is no widely known power system. Writing it down is actually more laborious than original creation. And everyone can also see that this book is not a monster fighting and upgrade text after all, and the author cannot write 10,000 words in every minute by describing shock, disdain, contempt, slap in the face, etc. In fact, I feel that I spend an average of more than 3 hours on each chapter, not counting the fish in the water. Maybe this is also the gap between novices and experts. It is said that starting with 1 million will lead to success. If I can write enough for 1 million, maybe I can imitate the big guys and make thousands every day. Therefore, after being put on the shelves, except for the first day, the normal base price is 4,000, which is updated every day. It is possible to combine chapters, but the number of words in a single chapter will not be too many. I often use chapter cards when reading books. The author has rich experience in this aspect. As for rewards, just let it happen. I'll be very happy if everyone is willing to subscribe. After all, there are many people in the group who are in danger of losing their plot every day and month. It's a lesson for the future. Of course, if there really is a big boss, I won't be able to give in for money and see if I can write 2 more chapters within my ability. At the same time, I can cure my problem of fishing in the crowd when I have nothing to do, LOL. Then back to the plot. If the first volume is the beginning, similar to the 3 golden chapters in other novels, explaining operations such as cheat fingers, then the second volume is the introduction of the worldview. Myth is not the myth of one person. Every god or person has his own place and should have his own story. This kind of book with a strong presence of supporting characters is actually not suitable for novices, but it can also train one's writing skills. The author can only say that he tries his best to write, but if he can't write well, then there's nothing I can do, JPG. Next, things in the starry sky are over, and the well-known figure in Greek mythology, the big stallion, the best friend of the queen and princess, and the childbearing god Zeus appears. The second half of the second volume is a story that revolves around the alternation of gods and kings. I have already thought of the ending, but the branching process depends on inspiration. I can only guarantee that just as no one has guessed where Ryan's one-day god king came from, probably no one can guess what will happen to Cronus. This was also a point that I felt relatively happy about before. Although I gave hints in many places, as long as I didn't express the content too directly, almost no one would guess it. But it makes sense. If I haven't written it yet, and everyone knows what I'm going to write, then the novel won't be interesting to read. Furthermore, from now on, I will try again to dial up and down the subjective agency of the different supporting characters, as well as the IQ of the few that exist, if the author's IQ is enough. The same goes for character creation. In addition to those with intelligence, I also have to write some without intelligence. I think this is more difficult, but in Greek mythology, there should be more gods with no intelligence than some. It is not uncommon for gods to cause trouble even if they are angry. In the past, due to the little change in the trajectory of fate, actually due to the limited ability of the new author, it always felt that the plot was just a one-man show by Ryan, without any actual sense of crisis or confrontation, which was not good either. This would make it seem like nothing has changed, or that everything is under control, which is boring. Even if he wants to be omniscient and omnipotent, that will only happen in the finale. On the premise of keeping the basics intact, I should also try to create some real opponents or unexpected troubles to add some challenges to the plot. The premise of all this is to get them moving first. This is also in line with the fate gradually deviating from the trajectory, and even deviating from the situation controlled by Ryan. After all, since the fate is uncertain, even he himself can no longer see everything. Finally, it's the content of the introduction. The magic network is naturally not just a network, but also a sequence. It is by no means a deus ex machina, but a reasonable evolution based on the existing worldview. I have already hinted at this very clearly. I guess many people can think of how the sequence will be expressed in Khaos. Of course, since the magic network was written first, there must be a sequence. Since the author only set up the main plot, and the branch plots are randomly arranged based on inspiration, so whether there is Socrates the demigod lich, Aristotle the god, Pythagoras the great alchemist, or debates between gods and men, I don't know. Have no idea. A lot of content is just a thought. If the follow-up does not conform to the main logic, then it will be cut. For the goddess of the dark moon, I originally asked Ryan to be the teacher, but in the end it turned into a diary of a little lowly self-taught god, and I rewrote an unknown number of words. Okay, this is the end of the plot, and the next step is the acknowledgement section. First of all, I would like to thank my parents for giving birth to me and having a computer for me to type. So don't read my book where I write that father is kind and son is filial every day, but in reality, it definitely doesn't exist. I would also like to thank the editor, my management, and many seniors in the group who gave me a lot of guidance and support in the process of writing the book. The author is really new. He is not from an external website, a physical entity, or a trumpet. He wrote the book for 2 months and only came into contact with this industry around the National Day. Let alone articles, he majored in science and engineering. Then there are the senior bosses who recommended me, Tuoba Boss who wrote The Final Priesthood, Parrot Biting Tongue who wrote The Food Immortal Lord, Handblade Chunfeng who wrote My Weird Life, and Dreamland Access to Ancient Times. I am really not the happy 6 ears of the ancient Taoist ancestors. Finally, I would like to dedicate the books of my friends in the author group, in no particular order. Book title: My Diary of Transcendence in the Heavens. Introduction. I won't write an introduction for this one. It's a high-quality book. The number of VIP words is not full, so there is no mark. The boss is right. Book title: If you are asked to practice martial arts, will your body shatter the planet? Introduction. I won't write an introduction for this one. The author has created a masterpiece of this fanfic and does not need an introduction to highlight its power. Book title: This young hero is too calm. Introduction. I still don't want to write an introduction for this one. The system is marginalized and it favors traditional style. It belongs to the martial arts channel. The reason for the lack of collections is that the channel is cold. It is said that I have written an award essay for Chidian. Book title: Hunter, Maskmaker. Introduction. Hunter fandom combines animation, games, movies, and mythology, with wonderful twists and turns and endless battles of wits. Book title: Strange Land, The Collector of Old Objects. Introduction. Two excellent previous works. This one is more useful than the introduction. Book title: Beginning with the Haunted Mansion Sleeper. Introduction. Li Xiang, a recent graduate of a vocational college, found his first job after entering the society. He only needed to sleep in a specific room for one night and receive a large sum of money for his labor. Earning over 10,000 yuan a month at such a young age, I am so happy that there are such beautiful things in the world. Semi-invincible plus lighthearted and funny plus folklore supernatural adventure article. P.S. I have a wide network of contacts and have written several old books. Book title: Greek Mythology, The Eyes of Khaos. Introduction. A novel with the same theme. You can know it just by looking at the name. I don't know why. I couldn't see a Greek mythology book in the past year, but now I'm everywhere.
I'm confused. .jpg.
Okay, that's it for my remarks. See you at midnight. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, The Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 70, 6 Legend. 7-Phase Meditation Method. This is the special knowledge Hecate learned from the stone tablets. According to Slate, the so-called meditation is a way to subtly enhance the spirit of mortal things through the influence of high-level beings. This high-level existence can be a certain life, a certain object, or a certain concept. It can be sought outside or inside. Of course, meditation is not random thinking. Only the correct method can grow and purify the meditator's spirit while ensuring one's own safety. For example, the 7 Phases meditation method is a method of attracting the moonlight of July in the spiritual world to absorb spiritual power and strengthen oneself. Simple name, real effect. Now Hecate has condensed the 4 phases of the moon, which means that she has stood at the apex of mortal things. The next step is the extraordinary realm. Extraordinary is not the same as God, but only extraordinary can contact the law. No matter how powerful the power of mortal things is, it is meaningless in the face of divine power. Only by contacting the law can real and effective damage be caused. Spirituality comes from the phases of the moon, and the moon is his eye. The pillar supporting the sky runs through the 7 strings and flows through the boundaries of the 10 kingdoms. Use tangible things to carry invisible tools and return to the original one. Reciting the mantra softly, the surrounding spiritual power turned into a tide, continuously pouring into Hecate's spirit. The 5th moon phase slowly condensed, and she didn't feel the level at all that should theoretically exist. This is normal. Although she does not have a priesthood, Hecate is still a god in essence and an immortal existence. Rather than using meditation to achieve a breakthrough, she is filling an empty vessel with strength. Infuse this kind of power, which is different from divine power, but ever-changing. In a distant place, it seems that there are beings in the spiritual world who have noticed the fluctuations here. It wants to get closer, and its intuition tells it that if it can swallow this unknown life spirit, it will undergo an unimaginable transformation. But there is also a dark hunch that if it really dares to do this, its existence will be completely wiped out. After hesitating for a while, it lingered for a long time and finally defeated its instinct and left here reluctantly. Some talent. In midair, under the light gray robe, the young god watching everything commented, "Not all beings can defeat their instincts, especially those without intelligence." Moreover, the other party's inspiration is also very high, and he can actually vaguely sense the existence of danger. Meditation. Interesting. A strong spirit will create a stronger dream. Unfortunately, it seems that this enhancement of the spirit will also allow people to control their thoughts. Even in sleep, they are not as random and disordered as other lives. I really hope there can be more life on the earth. According to the current progress, I don't know how long it will take for my divine power to reach the upper limit. Shaking her head, her wings flickered, and the figure disappeared. Hecate continued her meditation, without realizing it. With her potential, this kind of breakthrough is not difficult. In the eyes of future mortals, she could cross the chasm by just raising her legs. So without any trouble, the spirit body became stronger and stronger, and the nature of the magic power increased accordingly. Hecate successfully took this step and became the first legendary wizard in Khaos. The next morning, when the sun rose and shone on the red dress, Hecate gradually woke up from her meditation. Open your eyes, gently move your fingertips, and the pendants on the table float. This time, she didn't use any magic power, just pure mental power. The spirit is not equal to the soul, it is the external power of the soul. A strong soul only means having strong potential in the spiritual realm, just like priesthood and divine power. But compared to the priesthood, there are still many ways to slowly strengthen the soul. The spirit directly interferes with matter without the need for magic as a medium. This is one of the most basic characteristics of the legendary wizard. This represents the completion of an essential transformation of spiritual power and is also the origin of the name transcendent. Being transcendent from the ordinary is naturally called extraordinary. Extraordinary or legendary, is this what it feels like? Whispering softly, in Hecate's perception, there were many more things in everything that she could not see clearly before. That is the manifestation of the law. In the past, she had actually always been able to see because of the nature of God. But it wasn't until today that she clearly realized that she could not only see, but also contact. You made it! Writing slowly appeared on the surface of the stone slab, immediately attracting Hecate's attention. Of course, I don't feel any level at all. She snorted softly, feeling a little proud, but then she remembered something and fell silent again. After hesitating for a moment, she asked softly, "Now that I have broken through the extraordinary and become a legendary wizard, can I beat the gods now? If you are a regional god, you can try it. But the true god, even the weakest one, is far beyond your reach. There is no concealment. The writing on the stone slab has always been so direct." Is this so? Dusting the non-existent dust off her red dress, Hecate sat on the bed. Not long after she picked up this mysterious stone slab, and after realizing that it was at least harmless to her now, she asked it about her long-standing confusion. Who am I, where do I come from, and why am I here? Then Shurban pulled her into her memory and experienced the scene decades ago. As a new god, Hecate was not born with knowledge, but this did not mean that she had no memory of what happened when she was first born. But just like the mortals of later generations, those memories have no special method and will only exist permanently in the depths of the mind. But in front of the power of memory itself, all problems are not problems. Throw her into the abyss, it's brought shame to the gods. As the father of the god of sin, I deeply apologize. And the one I saw for the first time when I was born, I was originally full of expectations, but soon turned into disappointment and disappointment. Two bored goddesses. All of this was presented to Hecate one by one, as if she was experiencing it all over again. So, what do you want to do to them? Imprison them, torture them, and make them regret abandoning you? The writing reappeared, but Hecate shook her head. I don't know either. Actually, except for the goddess who wants to throw me into the abyss and the nominal father, I don't really hate anyone else. If I must say it, I want to be as powerful as them first, and then think about the follow-up. As she said, it was not difficult to accept that her existence had brought disaster to them, so she wanted to stay away from her. At most, because of the abandonment of the other party, I have nothing to do with them from now on. But after learning about the existence of Tartarus from the stone tablet, Hecate became a little disgusted with the light goddess Phoebe, her nominal grandmother. There was also Perseus, the god of destruction. She disliked this so-called father even more. But one thing I have thought about is that I want the god king to regret his decision, she said. It's not that he expelled me from the Titan god clan, but that the Titan God clan is not qualified to accommodate my existence. That's a bit difficult. After all, he is a god king. So, do you have any idea? Hecate asked, looking at the slate. Yes, but it's not that easy. Even now, you only have the qualifications to start the first step. Only God can fight against God, or at least in the current world. There is no intelligent existence other than God that can threaten them. So, if you want to master the power to fight against gods, you must find a way to become one of them first. Become one of them? I should have been one of them. With her lips raised as if she were smiling, Hecate smoothed her hair and continued to ask, "Then what should I do?" It should be difficult to become a true god by meditating alone. Yes, the reason why gods are gods is because they control authority and control part of the world. Simple meditation is meaningless. If you want to obtain a priesthood, the only way is to create one yourself. Build one. Yes, create one that belongs to you, a product created by you little by little. When it covers the sky, covers the earth, and penetrates deep into the sea, when it becomes an indispensable part of all spirits, as its creator, you will have the power to confront any Titan Lord. But you can't do this if you stay here. You need to travel to every corner of the world and use your spirit to experience the flow of elements and the changes in laws. I understand, Hecate laughed. So, is this also your purpose? She remembered a story Slate once told her about a little girl and her diary. The content of the story is not important. What is important is that it warns others that unless you can see where a thing is thinking, never believe in an intelligent being. Of course, this is exactly why I came to you. You have this potential, a potential beyond your imagination. But as usual, Slate answered without any cover. But if you refuse, I can also think of other ways for you. Okay then, I'll listen to you. Without hesitation, Hecate nodded. She pulled up her red hair and snapped her fingers. Everything in the wooden house seemed to be alive, bouncing into her pocket. The palm-sized pocket seemed to be a bottomless pit. Even though it contained everything except furniture, there was no sign of it being full. After packing her things, Hecate clasped her hands together. An invisible wave enveloped the hut and the nearby clearing, hiding its traces. Finally, she picked up the slate and said with a smile, "Slate, Slate, you look so eye-catching like this. How about changing to another one? Can you change into a book?" There was no response, but the stone slab changed its shape visibly to the naked eye. After a few seconds, it turned into a book of unknown material. This time, this book really looks like a book. It feels like paper rather than like its brother, which looks like a bronze ornament. Very good. Hecate held the book in her arms with a satisfied smile. Now you are my treasure, the great wizard Hecate. From now on, your name will be the complete book of all laws. Without any hesitation, the surrounding wind elements responded to Hecate's call and lifted her body into the air. Hecate had no nostalgia for this place where she had lived for a long time. She just took one last look and then flew off into the distance. Slate asked her to leave, but didn't say where. She heard that the edge of the continent was the sea, and she wanted to see it with her own eyes. The world is so big, she wants to verify for herself whether the things in the story are true. Hecate left, and the golden humans paid no attention to her departure. But somewhere she didn't know, on the sacred mountain, the God King's eyes followed her retreating back. He reached out his hand again, but sensing the approaching breath, he finally put it down. Things in the starry sky are indeed difficult to handle without the help of Khaos, the god of celestial bodies. But with another helper, things might be easier than he expected. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 77, Congratulations. Standing in the sky, his body wrapped in brand new black clothes, Ryan watched Hecate's retreating figure. Thousands of years ago, when the spiritual world had not yet been opened, he made 3 conditions to Cronus in the underworld. The origin of time and space has become the foundation of the spiritual world. The concept of the moon makes this feminine symbol that is naturally in tune with the spiritual world become a part of Ryan. But the last request, the expected net to control the elements, seemed to have been forgotten by Ryan, and he had not taken action yet. It's not that he can't do it. In fact, if he takes action personally in a month or two at most, he will be able to weave a network of elements throughout the world of chaos, but this actually means nothing to him. Just like many humanistic clergy nowadays, even if the current magic network is born, it is just a tool to sort out the power of elements in the world. There are not enough users, and there is not enough powerful source power to fill it. The so-called magic network can only support a weak divine power at most. Ryan doesn't know how much power of this level he has, but he just doesn't have enough objects to carry it. Although the magic net is a bit special, there is absolutely no need to do it yourself. He is the master of the spiritual world, not a wage earner in the spiritual world. With Hecate's current progress, once she accumulates enough and uses the power of the spiritual world to weave the magic web into shape, the third age will almost arrive. When humans who can reproduce appear in large numbers, that's when the magic network will show its existence. As its status in history and civilization becomes higher and higher, and as the gods begin to use it, it can be based on the spiritual world, deeply rooted in the roots of the world, and become an indispensable part of chaos. At that time, as the spellweaver, the first god of the magic web, it was Hecate's time to show off her talents. Even Ryan himself doesn't know what kind of power the magic network will have after it reaches its peak. He said he was looking forward to this. Of course, the original version of the magic network was probably different from the one in Ryan's memory. What he needs is not a mage, but a wizard. The so-called spell slot will probably not appear in the initial magic network. Even now, there is no such thing as a spell model, because Ryan himself doesn't know this thing. It's not that it can't be created, it's that there is no need to create it. Instead of defining a scope for something at the very beginning, it is better to let it grow wildly and wait until 100 flowers bloom, then set the rules. What's more, to make a mortal become a god, he only needs to grant the priesthood. But relying on mortals to become gods on their own, Ryan doesn't know how to achieve it now. The current version of the so-called 7-phase meditation method is limited to touching divinity and having a long life. Ryan doesn't even know what the status of a demigod in the true sense is. This kind of demigod is not the kind of 3,000 dream evil spirits accompanied by Hypnos, the god of sleep, or the kind of Perseus, the son of Zeus in later generations, who barely defeated the sea monster only by cheating with a magical weapon, but just like Hercules before becoming a god, he is a demigod hero who, although mortal, is strong enough to compete with the true god. He can even temporarily replace Atlas, the giant god who holds the sky, to hold up the sky. Such power is something that few, even the gods, can match. A person's wisdom is limited after all. I don't know if those great Greek sages will appear in the distant future as promised. When these top wise men among mankind have the opportunity to personally come into contact with extraordinary power, what will they bring to the world? There was some expectation in his heart, but Ryan did not stop any longer, but looked in the direction of Odil's mountain. He didn't care, but if he stayed any longer, Cronus might not be able to bear it anymore. If it weren't for him, if it were any other god who dared to come into contact with Hecate, who was regarded by the god king as a symbol of divine punishment, he would have been beaten to the door. What a hothead! Shaking his head, Ryan took a step forward and disappeared silently. As the space flashed, Ryan arrived at the halfway point of Odil's mountain. As far as the eye can see, it is green, but a little empty. Indistinctly, the sound of fighting creatures could be heard. It was the nymph fairy who lived in the sacred mountain. It's changed quite a bit. After commenting softly, Ryan sensed with his powerful spiritual sense that as he disappeared and reappeared, the eyes on the sacred mountain were faintly locked on him. But since he was already here, he was not in a hurry to go up. Instead, he walked slowly to the top of the mountain under the eyes of the other party, looking at the greatly changed scenery of the sacred mountain. When Themis was legislating, Ryan had only been on the top of the mountain once, so strictly speaking, the last time he came was when Auranes had just ascended the throne. Compared with the past, there are more stony roads on the sacred mountain now, as well as beautiful nymphs walking through the woods. The plants in the mountains have also changed a lot. They are no longer the original plants. Apart from satisfying the appetite, they are no longer useful to the gods. Going up the mountain road, Ryan clearly did not hide his figure, but all the creatures turned a blind eye to him. But Cronus was different after all. He is the god king, and also has the priesthood of time and space, so when Ryan stepped onto the top of the peak, the other party's eyes were looking at where he was. "Long time no see, Cronus." Nodding, Ryan greeted him like an old friend. "I took Hecate away. But since you have kicked her out of the Titans, you won't care about this little thing, right?" "It's the Titans, Ryan." Cronus' mouth seemed to twitch, but it was fleeting. "It's the same." Walk forward and stand side by side with Cronus. Ryan found that the location was really good. Just like when he was overlooking the 7 realms from the sacred mountain of Sinai, as the highest mountain in the world and the land closest to the sky, standing here gave rise to the feeling that everything is in the palm of his hand. Some things are meaningless only if you agree with them. Only if everyone agrees can they truly exist. It seemed that he was referring to the title of Titan, but Cronus knew that Ryan was actually referring to his position as God King. A God King recognized by only a few gods is not considered a God King. Only one recognized by all gods is considered a God King. Hecate is the daughter of original sin who is punished by the world. Her birth caused an imbalance in the starry sky. Not wanting to dwell on the verbal battle, Cronus instead said, "Of course you can take her away, but you also have to contribute to Shinkong's situation. Hyperion also offended you. Although he paid the price for it, everyone knows that if given the chance, he will definitely come back with revenge. As long as you stand by my side, not only will I no longer pursue Hecate's matter, I can even hand over some star fields to your star gods to take care of after the battle for the ownership of the starry sky is over." He turned around and looked directly at Ryan. Compared with other Titans, Cronus is not the tallest one, but as a king, he has become more and more qualified. They are all true gods who belong to the starry sky. They can draw power from the star field just like the sea god occupies the ownerless sea area. As long as they do not resist my rule, everything else is up to you. Did you also invite others, such as Edel, the god of light in the underworld? Without rushing to reply, Ryan asked with a smile. "Yes." Cronus nodded, and Hemera, the goddess of day, they have always been inseparable. The world is getting bigger and bigger, and there are more and more star fields in the starry sky. As long as they obey my rule, I don't care who they belong. "Is that it? It's you again, damn monster." In shock and anger, Hyperion stepped back sharply, but this was meaningless. Eclipse is formless, yet everywhere. In a blink of an eye, it clung to the figure of the sun god, constantly absorbing and eroding his divine power. Compared with last time, the ancient evil beings with medium-level divine power are even more powerful. Hyperion's power can no longer tear apart its unstable divine body. It can only cause ripples for a while, and then return to its original state. "Khaos do it." In the distance, the god queen said calmly. According to Cronus's arrangement, he could not directly attack the Titan god, but he could rescue the trapped Helios through the air. The sun god was left to the unwise Sun Eater to deal with, while the god queen and the god of weather were only responsible for stopping Thea, the mother of light. Although she and Khaos are two people, when the light and the sun are in the same place, their power is greatly enhanced. For Rhea, holding her sister back until Hyperion is defeated by her nemesis is all part of the mission. After all, the God King actually had no intention of doing anything to Hyperion. He could not imprison the symbol of the sun itself into an abyss beyond this world. Defeat him, let another sun god replace him just like he imprisoned Helios before, and then use the authority of the God King to imprison him under the mountain of God or in the underworld. This is what Cronus can do the limit. At least that's what the God King thinks now. Step aside. Buzz. It seemed like a long time passed, but in fact, from the time Eclipse appeared to the time the God Queen called the God of Weather, it was only a blink of an eye. Thea, who was originally relaxed and casual, suddenly found that the battle situation was out of control. The monster that once blocked the sun appeared in the starry sky again. The ribbon formed by the brilliance changed from 1 to 10,000 and was uncertain between reality, and it crashed straight into the two Titan gods. Crazy storms blocked the front of the ribbon, and they collapsed at the first touch, but more storms were pulled out of the passing time, constantly hindering Thea's attack. "Rhea, do you want to destroy the sun? How dare you let that monster attack him?" Thea yelled angrily, which was a little difficult to understand. She and Rhea are both goddesses. Before, she only suppressed them, but did not really let go. Otherwise, although the God Queen has the artifact in hand, the star gods around her may not be any stronger than those on the other side. On the one hand, Thea believed that she had a chance to win, and on the other hand, she was more or less rational compared to her husband. Beings like star gods have always obeyed the rule of whomever the star domain in which they are located belongs to. When the starry sky is recovered, aren't these star gods still their subordinates and have suffered too many losses? Do they have to stabilize the starry sky themselves? But she never expected that the other party would actually release the monster that had swallowed the source of the sun. By destroying the sun for the sake of the starry sky, not only will the divine power of the God King not increase, but it will also suffer backlash from the world. "You worry too much, sister." Shaking her head, Rhea didn't stop moving her hands. She borrowed power from the past to keep the weather god's power at its peak. Although her frontal combat power is not strong, as the Queen of the Gods, Rhea is still commendable in terms of support. You have noticed the power of Sun Eater has become stronger, but it is also being repelled by the laws of the world. The longer it stays, the stronger the suppression it receives. It cannot stay here forever. What's more, Chrono, he has no intention of doing anything to you and your wife. As long as your son and husband's places are exchanged, and he comes to the holy mountain as a guest, or lives in the underworld for a long time, the star god will still respect you as the mother of light. Hyperion imprisoned your eldest son. Are you not dissatisfied with him? Light. What the God Queen responded to was an even stronger wave of divine power. Obviously, Thea was not shaken by a few words. Hyperion's behavior of imprisoning his eldest son did make Thea dissatisfied, but it was only somewhat contradictory. After all, the sun god is not the father, and what he has done is not enough to make his wife leave. However, the explanation from the Queen of God finally reassured her. As long as there was no problem with the sun, everything would be fine. In an instant, as Thea exploded with all her strength, all the gods on the God King's side were blinded. Few people remember that Thea was not only the mother of light, but also the goddess of sight. Under the influence of her authority, all enemies have lost the ability to observe the environment with their eyes. Even in the distance, the ancient evil object is also affected by this power, but it does not rely on vision. As long as the perception of light and heat is still there, it can still move freely. Years. With a soft drink, Rhea also mobilized her authority. She shared her lost time with every true god. Although they can only see the world at the last moment, it is enough to react. Hold her, it will be over soon. Light and storm collided again, mixed with the power of other true gods. Edel, the god of skylight, who had been paddling the water, also took action with all his strength, interfering with the goddess of light's control of light. However, just as the battle between the two sides became more intense, a bad premonition suddenly appeared in the hearts of the gods present. Thea turned her head to look, and in the direction Hyperion was hiding from, he was already tightly wrapped in black mist. The sun god had foreseen his failure, but his face at this moment was not dark, but full of madness. "Helios, Cronus, my dear son and brother, since you want the stars and the sun so much, then I will give them to you." Looking at the black mist that could not be shaken off no matter what, Hyperion stopped struggling. He is the sun god, the sun, and should have his own way of death. It's just that you can take what you want, but the result will never be what you want. I will rule this starry sky. or watch it turn into scorched earth. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 82 Starfall. The voice of the sun god echoed in the star space, and his eyes were fixed on all the gods present. His divine body began to burn, and his divine power became unstable, but the vague sense of oppression became stronger and stronger. Not all gods can do this, but the sun undoubtedly can. So along with his master's madness, the huge light body that dominated the starry sky also expanded. On the sacred mountain, the expression of the god king who had just rescued Helios suddenly changed, and even Ryan, who was watching the battle in the spirit world, frowned. Perhaps because he often deals with those gods who use their brains, even Ryan has forgotten that not all the gods of chaos are concerned with gains and losses. Any normal god would never do such a thing that harms others and does not benefit oneself. Especially since the gods are immortal, Hyperion's actions not only affect the present, but will continue to have a negative impact on him in the long years to come. But he still did it, as if he didn't care about the consequences at all. Fortunately, although Ryan was the promoter of this mistake, he was not the one who mainly paid the price. It's just that for a long time in the future, the gods who carve up the star field will have a headache. The god of chaos is really crazy. Even if you can't see it before, you never know when he will go crazy. Thinking of the Trojan War that swept through the Olympus pantheon in later generations and caused the gods to fight on Earth, just because the goddess of discord did not receive an invitation to the banquet, Ryan felt that there was nothing incomprehensible about this. It's easy to say now. If it were a more radical god, he might drag the sun and hit the sacred mountain. Sighing, Ryan waved his hand and called Esther, who was standing aside.
Be prepared, he said.
If nothing else, the damage will be greatest around the sun. When you get there, it will take a lot of energy. Choose some from the golden human spirits. It is barely feasible to use them to replace the star god. After silently making arrangements, the starlight goddess took the order and left. In the entire world of Khaos, there are not a few gods who are shocked by the changes in the starry sky. On the sea, watching the sky full of fireballs falling to the earth, the ocean god Oceanus also stopped fighting with the original sea god Pontos. The sudden surge of solar power made them all realize what Hyperion had done. That's it, Pontos, they have decided the winner. Facing his uncle, Oceanus spoke. Although he could gain greater gains by continuing to fight, the environment no longer allowed him to do so. From now on, the ocean god plans to avoid Cronus's edge until his child is born. And if nothing else, it won't be long. On the other side, the original sea god Pontos also looked at the sky. Although he had been at a disadvantage before, he still gained something. Of course I can, but you, my nephew, when Cronus wins, you will be his next target. The voice of the original Poseidon is heavy, like his original symbol, the concave surface of the earth. The three gods that Gaia once gave birth to alone were like this. Aurena symbolizes the opposition of the earth, and then there is the sky. Pontus symbolizes the depression of the earth, and then there is the sea. Uriah is the bulge of the earth, which is finally called a mountain range. They were originally part of the earth, and then the evolution of the world divided this initial material. But you won't really stand on his side, right? After all, even your own brother was forced to disintegrate his divine body by him. The tall ocean god lord with blue hair and shawl has a loud voice. The sea gods present heard his words. They didn't know what happened in the starry sky, but it was true. The Titans are merciless to each other, not to mention that the original Poseidon series does not belong to the Titans. Maybe, but I won't go against him, Oceanos. Let you Titan gods resolve the matters between the Titans. Anyway, I have never had any idea about the position of the god king. Turning around, the original Poseidon greeted him. He left this place with the true gods under his command and returned to the palace he built on the bottom of the sea. Opposite him, Lord Ocean God did not stop him and just continued to look at the vision in the sky. The expanding sun, A large number of collapsing celestial bodies, thousands of star gods who lost their support in an instant and fell into eternal sleep, and the rain of stars that cut through the sky and fell to the earth, all formed a beautiful picture. But the gods all know that something big must be happening behind the beauty, in the starry sky of Khaos. However, the world today has become increasingly huge. Except for gods with special authority, there are very few beings who can see through the world at a glance. So they could only watch the falling meteors in silence and make various guesses. In the starry sky, because of Hyperion's actions, the three powerful gods also stopped their movements in unison. Hyperion, are you crazy? Although he didn't take the star god seriously in his heart, the weather god still couldn't understand it. The violent sun shook the celestial bodies around it into dust in an instant, and those a little further away also fell into pieces and fell into the human world. If this was to deal with the enemy, Khaos could understand it, but Hyperion actually destroyed his own star gods. After all, those whose bodies exist around the sun are inherently impossible to surrender to the God King no matter what. Isn't it obvious? The divine power was still burning, and even Eclipus, who was wandering around the sun god, felt a little overstuffed for a while, and was separated from Hyperion by a distance. The somewhat embarrassed ancient titan sneered and looked into the distance, which was the direction Helios was escaping from. I lost, but not to you. Without the birth of this traitor, as the sole master of the sun, even Cronus would not be able to defeat me in the starry sky. I know what he wants, and I also know that my eldest son is waiting to receive my inheritance, but I will not give him this chance. Losing 3% of the star field of the star god, the violent and uncontrollable supreme celestial body, this is the gift I left him. And Cronus is different from me. I will only imprison him, but the God King only needs a son that is unable to resist and is controlled by him. After saying that, Hyperion took one last look at the black mist around him. He didn't look at his wife because he could guess her disappointed look. He just mustered up the strength and exploded his divine body. As the sun god, Cronus did not dare to lock him into the abyss. But if it were sealed elsewhere, Hyperion would really have no chance to turn around. So he took advantage of the gap when the ancient evil thing devoured his shattered body, turned into a golden stream of light, and rushed towards the sun. At the same time, the violent sun also crashed towards its master, and countless celestial bodies fell apart along the way. In the distance, the Queen of Gods stretched out her hand, as if she wanted to block her, but Thea, the goddess of light, stopped her. Although she could not understand her husband's behavior, Thea did not want Hyperion to be imprisoned in the holy mountain. After all, in her heart, the star god's status is just a useful tool. Whoosh! Then, before the eyes of the gods, the golden light disappeared into the sun. But although he has returned to the symbol of his priesthood, this act of self-destruction of the divine body is more difficult to recover from than a normal injury. Not surprisingly, Hyperion will be unable to do anything for at least 1,000 years. With the return of the sun god, the supreme celestial body not only did not calm down, but became even more violent. Not far away, Helios, who had just escaped from captivity, hurried over. He looked at the turbulent sun and tried to use his part of the priesthood to calm him down, but it was all in vain. Let me do it. Time and space twisted into a tunnel, and Cronus's voice came from it. His goal was achieved, but what was left was a mess. The God King didn't know whether he should be happy or not. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek mythology, the spiritual dominator. Stepping out of the tunnel, Cronus glanced at the situation. The water-like liquid splashes out from the sun and scatters into the starry sky, oceans and earth. The son of Khaos is not made of fire. It is more of a special existence between solid and liquid. Just like the stars in Khaos, they are not distant stars, but some special luminous celestial bodies containing star cores. Many of them even do not have their own star gods. As part of the sun sets to the ground, a Jedi, with distorted environments appears. The God King also noticed that some of it flowed into the ground along the cracks in the earth, part of it turned into magma, and part of it flowed further down where the underworld is. They formed a lake of lava, which, like Styx, was at the gate of Hades and became one of the barriers that separated the two worlds. Watching all this, Cronus sighed. Although his goal was achieved, and the star gods at the core of the solar system were all sent away by Hyperion himself, the mess he left behind still had to be dealt with by the God King. Thea, my sister, I hope you understand that I didn't actually want to get to this point. Putting aside the matter of the sun, standing in the starry sky, the God King explained to the goddess of light. What has happened, and the consequences cannot be undone. Although this was Hyperion's act of pride, other ancient Titan gods may not think so. A main god destroyed his body and shook the symbol of his priesthood. If Cronus forced Thea to live in seclusion in the starry sky, he didn't know whether there would be other consequences. Maybe not, but now that he has won, he doesn't intend to cause trouble. What's more, compared to the sun god who has been coveting the position of God King since he was imprisoned in the mother's womb, Thea has never cared about this. As a goddess, she is not as ambitious as her husband. If she were not on the opposite side of herself, the God King would actually be happy for the starry sky to be controlled by such a god. Stop pretending, Cronus, you won. Then what are you going to do with me? Lock me in the abyss? The voice was cold, and although she knew what Cronus said was true, Thea didn't appreciate it. You're too worried. Shaking his head, the God King knew that the other party was just talking angrily. In fact, the other party also knew that he would not do anything to her. After taking a look at Selene, the moon goddess, and Eos, the dawn goddess, who were hiding aside, the God King made a decision in his heart. As of now, the star field around the sun has been destroyed to this point, but during the movement of the moon, all the star fields in the path still belong to you and your children. But I hope, Thea, that you won't go against me again like Hyperion did. Oh, instead of worrying about me, why not think about your unborn children? I am not interested in your throne, but they may not be. Leaving behind a cold word, the Mother of Light flew towards the moon with her two daughters. As for the eldest son Helios, she knew that the God King still needed to solve the sun problem with him. What's more, if he just sits back and watches his husband imprison him, he may not want to leave with him. Helios, how do you feel? Watching the goddess of light leave, Cronus was not very angry, but turned around and asked about the other sun god. If it were before, the God King might have felt anxious because of this, but after learning that the goddess was born first, he was relieved a lot. Your Majesty, my father is still influencing the sun inside, and now I can't judge whether I can control it. After a brief reaction, Helios said helplessly, I see. Nodding to the young god beside him, Cronus returned his gaze to the sun. The key to solving the raging sun is to first solve the sun god inside, diminishing his influence over the sun and allowing Helios to take his place. Of course, if the new sun god has other thoughts in the future, he can also release Hyperion and sit back and watch the dispute between the two sides. But now, the God King wants to seal him first. Hyperion, until now you are still fighting against order. In this case, as the God King who rules the world, I hereby declare your crime. The authority of the God King echoes the creation code, and order, law, and royal authority are innately consistent. At this moment, Cronus felt that his power was being boosted crazily. In terms of strength alone, most of his body had even entered the realm of great divine power. This is the realm that the Heavenly Father once reached with the power of God King alone, but Uranus still has the sky, but Cronus does not have the matching power. But that's enough. Privately imprisoning the Titan gods and preventing them from performing their duties is the first crime. As the supreme being of light, he caused the stars to fall and the sun to turmoil. This is the second sin. Those words and deeds that are disrespectful and insult the King of God are the third crime. Vaguely, Cronus seemed to be able to see the figure inside through the sun, and he made a final judgment calmly. I imprison you here in the name of the God King, effective now, and the sentence will last forever. The next moment, the endless chain of order was pulled out from the void, penetrated directly into the sun, and locked the figure inside. At the same time, Cronus's aura also dropped directly, and it was no longer as scary as before. Sealing a god is not something that can be done casually. True divine energy continuously obtains power from the priesthood, so if you want to seal a god, you naturally need to invest a steady stream of power. From this moment on, approximately 35% of the divine power equivalent to Hyperion's heyday was stripped from the God King to maintain the permanent existence of this seal. This is why the giants were imprisoned in the abyss instead of just finding a random place to seal them up. Because the gods imprisoned there will be handled by Tartarus on their behalf, without any additional consumption. Well, Helios, your father has paid the price for his actions. Turning to look at Helios, the young sun god quickly bowed and saluted, expressing his loyalty to the God King. The sudden burst of power from Kronos just now was really terrifying. For the second-generation Titan, who had never seen his heavenly father, it was already terrifying beyond his imagination. From today on, the sun will rise and set because of the God King, your majesty. However, I just sensed it again, but the result was not wonderful. Facing Cronus' gaze, Helios said helplessly, "After Godfather's previous stimulation, the sun has become even more violent. Although Godfather has been sealed now, I still cannot control it with my power alone. I need your help to fulfill my duties as the sun god. Otherwise, although I can make the sun move, I cannot guarantee that it will not deviate from its orbit." I see. He had a headache and was dissatisfied with Helios' incompetence, but Cronus had to solve the problem. If we can't stabilize the starry sky that has become a little restless due to the absence of the star god and return the sun's movement to the right track, then even if we get the starry sky, it will not be able to increase the power of the God King. But regarding this problem, it's not that there's no solution, it's just that some of the newly acquired starry sky needs to be distributed. After all, if it doesn't work, just borrow the creation code for a while. With the assistance of this artifact of order, Helios should be able to barely move the sun. And without the suppression of Hyperion, the new sun god can quickly complete the accumulation of divine power. When he becomes a medium-level divine power, he will be able to perform his priestly duties more easily. But, son, it's better to be weaker. Out of the corner of his eye, he glanced at the young god who looked heroic but seemed a bit reserved due to being imprisoned for many years. Cronus didn't care about the obedience he showed. God's thoughts will change with the power of control. No one knows whether Helios will be the same as he is now when his divine power reaches its peak. Maybe, maybe not, but the God King doesn't need maybe. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 80, For No Need. In the spiritual world, July is hanging high. Ryan leaned on the back of a seat in Lopo's temple and looked out to the outside world. 3 days had passed since the star had set, and just as he thought, the two guests entered the gate of the underworld. On the way, they also killed many undead beings. After all, they were not only weak, but also did not look in line with the aesthetics of the gods. "Lyanna, I'm here, your highness." Black hair like a waterfall, the same response as before. Hundreds of years have passed, and with the expansion of Hades, Mingyu has become more and more powerful. Cronus and Helios have entered the underworld. Welcome them in for me. After taking a sip of tea, Ryan ordered lightly. Taking the new sun god with him, it's easy to know what the other party's purpose is. "Yes, your highness." Lyanna responded softly, then exited the hall. After about a short while, Cronus walked into the temple first. Helios followed. The new sun god followed suit and regarded himself as a follower. Apart from the goddess of law, they are the only two true gods who have entered the spiritual world. Incarnate? It seems that His Majesty the God King has misunderstood me somewhat. Smiling and nodding, Ryan welcomed Cronus' arrival. But he could sense that the other party was not really here. Not every god can differentiate between incarnations, but Cronus certainly can. The spiritual world is getting stronger and stronger. Here, the power of the real world is almost completely isolated. I don't have any sense of security. After finding a chair and sitting down, Cronus said with a smile. Besides, it's just like the mother goddess's life face. No one knows what you will encounter when you come here. Faced with the hidden meaning of the God King, Ryan didn't take it seriously. Since we are talking about life, Aquarius, hey, have you ever thought about a question? Since I am the spiritual master and the first life in the world, why did the spiritual side of life, authority, not belong to me from birth? Instead, it was attributed to a divine weapon. In the original trajectory, Gaia was the first primitive god to be born, and it was natural that she would be accompanied by life. But that is not the case now. I didn't quite understand it before, but now I'm gradually aware of it. Just like almost all gods don't like him very much, compared to what I brought to him, what he left me was only the part that he couldn't take away. Everything is done according to instinct. He is the greatest good, and he is also the greatest evil. In other words, good and evil should not be used to describe him. Pointing casually to the long table in front of him, Ryan motioned for Helios to take a seat. The young sun god on the side tried his best to reduce his sense of existence. This god, who had been hidden in the snow since birth and had been imprisoned for a long time, did not have the aura. However, unlike what the gods imagined, standing at the door of the palace, Cronus felt the increasingly violent law fluctuations around him, and there was no tension or anger. On the contrary, he was very relaxed and even had time to pour himself a glass of wine while paying attention to the bright and dark eyes around him. Of course, there is also the matter of dealing with the sister, standing aside. Hundreds of years have passed, and with the efforts of the goddess of law, most of the disasters caused by the sun god have been quelled. The blessings from the stars also acted on the god king. Now, Cronus has truly reached the peak of his divine power. But only when he got to this point did he finally understand how terrifying the great divine power really was. The barrier in front of him was like an abyss. He didn't even know how deep it was, let alone crossing it. It's so deep that even if it contains the enhancement brought by nearly 1/3 of the Earth, it won't be able to make any waves at all. As you can see, Themis, I am not worried about the first child Rhea has given me. Concentrating on distinguishing the obscure glances from all sides, Cronus said lightly. In fact, I've been able to confirm through some methods that the first child who is about to be born is a goddess and is not a threat to my existence. So you don't have to be so alert. I won't do anything to the new god, who is not a threat. He said so, but in Cronus' mind, he just planned to postpone the processing. After all, when he wielded the sword, his brothers and sisters all stood with him. Naturally, he would not make the same mistake a second time. If this is the case, I apologize to you for this, but I still have to stay here to see the final result. Nodding simply, Themis did not shy away from her possible mistakes. As the goddess of justice, if she misunderstood the other party, she should apologize. That's not necessary. If possible, please help me stay in the starry sky for a while. Shaking his head, Cronus said, I estimate that it will take at least hundreds of years for everything to return to its original state. Until then, we will still be in trouble. I will. After getting the answer, Themis stopped talking and looked in the direction of the palace. The surrounding laws fluctuated more and more violently, and those hidden gazes became more intensive, but this had nothing to do with the goddess of justice. Now she just wants to wait for God Queen Rhea to give birth to an heir, and then return to the starry sky. Not only because the chaotic star field made her instinctively uncomfortable, but also because she didn't like the struggle for power among the gods. If she is allowed to use the evil-killing sword, also known as the Sword of Judgment, to sense it, most of the gods in Khaos can basically cause the artifact to react to a greater or a lesser extent. Buzz. As time passed by, the chain of laws extending from the sacred mountain became increasingly clear. All this shows that the god who is about to be born has a very powerful priesthood. But it is unclear where this clergy will come from. Maybe a new concept will be born in the world, or maybe another ancient god will split the clergy. Time gradually came to night. The moon is in the middle of the sky, and everything is silent. At a certain moment, a red light filled the sky was born from the sky. It stretches all the way to the earth and is reflected in rivers and lakes. At the same time, the law is also announcing the birth of a new god to all living beings. Hestia, the goddess of fire and protection. The appearance of the new god silenced the law for a moment, but it did not stop, but intensified. The red light gradually faded away, replaced by a mixture of green and yellow colors. The new vision covers a wider area than before. The ocean, the underworld, and all plants are rapidly maturing and bearing abundant fruits under the invisible power. Is it related to plants? It's really troublesome. His face became serious. Cronus had noticed the clues. Hestia's appearance was just a prelude. Because of the incompleteness of fire, the goddess's ministry was not as powerful as imagined. Although Guardian is also very powerful, it still has some gaps compared to subsequent gods. But the strength of the priesthood is secondary. But the second god is related to plants, which means that she will divide the divine power of the Earth Mother again. Because of the giants imprisoned in the abyss, Cronus had a somewhat delicate relationship with Mother Earth. He didn't know what choice Gaia would make when the new god was born. However, Shintan was not affected by his thoughts, and the aura of growth of all things became stronger and stronger. Even in the temple, Cronus noticed the aura of the accompanying artifact. In a few moments, as the earth roared, a green light streaked across the east and crashed into the temple. The new god's true name also resounded throughout the world. Demeter, the god of growth. With the birth of the new god, the fluctuations in the origin sea gradually subsided. At the same time, beings with medium divine power and above can detect that the priesthood of plant has almost completely left the Earth Mother. In the past, the real symbol of the plant itself was not Gaia, but the golden apple tree grown from the seed of all things, in the vase of life. Now, even the priesthood of plants growing and withering has been divided by the world, and all she has left is her identity as the creator of plants in this world. Plants are closely related to the earth. They obtain nutrients from the earth and eventually return to the earth. Without this power, Earth Mother's power will inevitably decline a lot again. Even most importantly, even the speed of her strength recovery will be affected. The gods have different attitudes towards this, but they all know that the relationship between the two masters walking on the earth has once again deteriorated. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 89 Gift. Near the great plain of Delphi, the hermitage of the Earth Mother. The glow gradually faded away, and the vision caused by the birth of God dissipated into nothingness, but the changes that happened to Gaia have not stopped yet. When Demeter came into the world, Mother Earth's power, which had gradually returned to its former self, instantly dropped back a bit, and her appearance, which was in her 40s, also aged a few years again. From the outside, she seems to be back to how she was thousands of years ago. The hair color is a little dry, the green skirt is gradually turning yellow, and as expected, this time, it will never return to its original appearance. After all, the vitality of all things is originally a garment draped over the earth, just like the mystery shrouding the Mother of Night. Now that this part of the priesthood has been lost, the chain reaction caused was immediately revealed in the personified image of the god. At the same time, Gaia's personality was once again partially shattered. Compared to the two gods of the Dark Night, her remaining power is less than half of theirs. At the beginning of creation, Gaia was actually the one with the strongest origin. She is the symbol of the original material in the world and the cornerstone of existence in this world. But now, only the part that belongs to the earth is left.
Boom.
The power spread all around, and as Mother Earth's mood fluctuated, the ground began to vibrate. Not far away, the golden humans near the Oracle of Delphi didn't know what was going on, so they had no choice but to pray to the gods. But Gaia didn't pay attention to them. There was a ball of anger in her heart, that had nowhere to vent. She wanted to go to the sacred mountain to find the God King to reason, but she also knew that it had nothing to do with Cronus. And now, she can no longer overwhelm him with her strength. Khaos, I consider you my father, but you treat me like this. Among the gods in the world, she is the only one whose powers have been constantly divided since her birth. As one of the ancient gods who created the world, she felt like she was being used as a tool by the world, constantly feeding the new gods with her own flesh and blood. She didn't know why. Maybe it was the instinct of the laws of the world that she didn't want two powerful gods to walk in the world, so as a completely personalized primitive god, she was naturally targeted. Even though she has never exercised her authority arbitrarily since the day she was born, the world, without will, does not care about this. She has no character, so naturally she will not treat the gods differently because of this. Whether you stay on your toes or be ambitious, he only cares about what you have done and what you are capable of doing. Erebus is right. Sometimes I'm just too indecisive. Maybe I should be more direct. I don't need to think so much. As the original god who lives with the world, I have nothing to worry about as long as the world continues. After a long while, when Gaia calmed down, she remembered the comments her brother, the Lord of Darkness, had given her. She could have forced Cronus to release the giants from the abyss when he was still weak, but in the end she left Mount Odile's alone and came to this plain that had no name at the time. Moanda. Calling her waiter softly, Gaia stretched out her hand to grab it, and a golden stream of light flew from a distance and landed on her palm. The rich breath of life lingers on it, but unfortunately, for Gaia, it has no effect. Even the remaining personality makes many things in this world ineffective against Gaia, and the thing in her hand is one of them. It can repair the divine body and increase divine power, but in the face of the incompleteness of the original divine personality, this is nothing more than an ordinary fruit. Your Highness, you called me? In the woods not far from Gaia, a figure emerged due to her call. That is the head of the nymphs who serve the Earth Mother. She was given divinity by Gaia and thus gained eternal life. Moanda, I order you to set off for the holy mountain now, congratulate the birth of the two new gods on my behalf, and take my gifts with you. But when you come back, remember to ask Iapetus, the god of speech, to come and see me. But be careful not to let the God King know about this. You can do it, right? Looking in the direction of the sacred mountain, Gaia said slowly. She wanted the God King to focus his energy elsewhere first, making him think that she didn't want to go against him. Of course, this is also true. Gaia is not good at fighting, so she will not use force to solve problems. Simply speaking, her brother had already prepared everything for her. Even if he had ulterior motives, Gaia didn't care. I will, Your Highness. On the side, the beautiful nymph fairy respectfully accepted the order. Although it is difficult, after all, it is almost impossible to talk to a true god in the realm of the God King without being discovered. But as if he felt the wrath of the Lord God, Moanda didn't say any unnecessary words. Then go ahead. Nodding, Gaia handed the things into fairy nymph's hands and then left her divine power on her body. This means that she is protected by the earth and is also a messenger recognized by the Earth Mother. With a slight salute, Moanda put away his things and turned around to leave. As a weak nymph, even with the help of the Earth Mother, she must set off as soon as possible. After another half-day, the descending aura on Gaia's body gradually stabilized. She looked at the Oracle of Delphi not far away and reaffirmed her decision in her heart. The lifespan of the golden humans is gradually coming to an end, but Cronus is afraid of the prophecy. So even though the gods proposed to create the next generation of life a long time ago, the God King still firmly refused. He issued an order that no god could create new life, otherwise he would be an enemy of him. The gods gave up their thoughts one after another, and Gaia was hesitant before, until today. Erebus wants to learn the secrets of creation and steal the world's power? Then let him go. It would be best to empty this world, so that he no longer has the ability to influence the direction of the priesthood. Cronus doesn't want humans to be born? But she insists on creating a silver human and let him know that if you are not willing to release the giant in the abyss, then I will not let you go. Compared with her previous scruples, Gaia now just wants to do something according to her own heart, no matter what it is. What's more, maybe it was because she had held an oracle for a short time, or maybe it was a spontaneous warning from the remaining personality. She vaguely seemed to feel that in the near future, there would be a new god who would sever her power. And not surprisingly, the new gods also come from the sacred mountain. Whether it's the God King or the world, it's all the same. Clenching her fists, she whispered to herself, as if to cheer herself up. Greedy, willful, egotistical, Khaos, Aurenas, and now Cronus, they only care about themselves. No one has ever cared about me. But if you don't want to make it easy for me, then if one of you counts, you won't even think about having an easy time. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 90, Freezing Time. Across the plains, Earth Mother sent her attendants, and elsewhere the gods responded. Seeing the two goddesses appearing first, those who were peeking at the sacred mountain withdrew their gazes one after another. Hestia, the eldest daughter of the god king, although Fire and Guardian are both very good at fighting priests, due to the incompleteness of one of them, whether she can enter the powerful divine power is actually a matter of choice. Even if it is possible, it will probably take a long time. As for the other goddess Demeter, her priesthood is too auxiliary. Even if the divine power is powerful, the combat power is very limited. What's more, in the tradition of the world of Khaos, the goddess cannot sit on the throne of the god king. Since there is no possibility of shaking Cronus's rule, naturally no god will be interested in it. They chose to wait for the coming of the Son of God. Thanks for your hard work. After walking into the bedroom and looking at the two babies in Rhea's arms, Cronus said gently, "I'm fine." Rhea's face was a little pale, but she was in good spirits. Just seeing her husband, she glanced at her two children with a worried expression. "What are you going to do with them?" she asked. "They are goddesses and will not become the people in the prophecies and curses. I know that they have no possibility of replacing me, but when I face my father, my brothers and sisters also stood by me, didn't they?" Cronus shook his head, but looking at the change in the queen's face, Cronus comforted him. "But you don't have to worry. Their current divine power is still very weak, their strength is not strong enough, and the predicted time is far from coming. I have a better solution. If possible, let them continue like this." Stretching out his hand, the power of time surged through him. When invisible fluctuations covered the two goddesses, their growth was slowed down. The divine power turned into a golden liquid, sealing the two baby girls inside, like two crystal-clear gems. Cronus put them aside and sat on the edge of the bed. "Let's do this for the time being. At least for now, the strength of the two of them won't bring much burden to me." Heaving a sigh of relief, Rhea's expression relaxed. However, she is also in charge of a time-related priesthood. The queen knows very well how much power it requires to stagnate two powerful true gods. In the future, we won't just have these two children. Then we'll talk about it later. Cronus interrupted. He had an idea, but he knew that Rhea would never accept it, so he simply didn't say it out loud. Letting the gods return to the mother's body is not only an injury to the mother's body, but also a blasphemy to the fertility laws created by Heavenly Father and Earth Mother. The lessons from the past are still in front of us, and Cronus will not insist on going against it. And the prophecy shows a node, the birth of silver humanity. As long as new life has not appeared on the earth, the future is not so scary. It would be best if he could think of a solution to the prophecy within this period of time. If not, it's not too late for him to make plans. After spending some time with the Queen of Gods, sensing the disappearing aura of the Goddess of Justice outside the temple, Cronus smiled and then walked out of the dormitory. When his eldest daughter was born, he had to make sure of some things. After all, he wouldn't just have these two children. Zephyros, the leader of the four wind gods whom I personally anoint. Has anyone disobeyed my orders in the past 1,000 years? After stepping through the door of the temple, his smile faded, and Cronus asked in a deep voice. As early as a few days ago, he recalled the god of the west wind. If the god's birthday had not come one day earlier than he expected, the god king would not have let him wait outside the temple. No, your majesty, in fact, the gods do not have this ability. On the side, the figure of the god of the west wind changed from virtual to solid, and he bowed respectfully to the god king. The creation of life is the result of the interaction between the source liquid in the life Aquarius and the well water in the well of origin. So, although the creatures on the earth are gradually becoming sparse, no gods have created new life. Nodding, the god king was very satisfied with Zephyros's answer. The birth of silver human beings and the rise of the second sacred mountain. He didn't know when the latter would happen. After all, there were many ways to create a mountain, but the creation of humans was controllable. Before, his children had not been born, so he was only roughly prepared for the birth of new humans, but it was different now. Silver humans, weapons will rise on the earth, and Cronus will start from here to test the power of fate. To do anything, you must move from weak to strong, and the same is true when facing fate. If he is still unable to stop the fate involving the replacement of the God King, then Cronus will use silver humans as a medium to test how strong the power of fate is. In other words, this can at least help him understand fate better and understand the mechanism of its effects in this world. Even if the silver humans still appear in the end, this is still a valuable experience for him. Zephyros, I will give you another task. Looking towards the east of the earth, Cronus said lightly. Go to the great plains of Delphi, watch over it for me, and record which gods have gone there. Since the creation of life cannot be separated from the life Aquarius, then I just need to keep an eye on its existence. Make a note of every existence that may borrow the artifact, and I will visit them one by one later. His expression changed. Hearing that he was going to peep near a primitive god again, the god of West Wind instinctively wanted to refuse. Although Earth Mother is far inferior to Ms. Yi, the deterrent power of both parties is actually the other way around. The god of speech is preparing, and something big has happened again in Khaos in these years. 390 years after the birth of Hestia and Demeter, the third daughter of the god king was born. Under the declaration of the laws of this world, all the gods knew her name, Hera, the goddess of fertility. On the day she was born, part of the authority related to the original birth was severed again. Fertility. This is the reward given by Khaos to the Titan gods when they conceive them together with the Heavenly Father. Fatherhood made Uranus sit on the throne, while the power of procreation made Gaia the queen of the gods. Although it cannot enhance the gods themselves like the former, it can bring strength to their spouses and offspring. This is the divine right that is most suitable for a queen of gods, so the birth of Hera also attracted more attention. However, just like her two sisters, no one has ever seen her again except for the day to celebrate the new god's birthday. Time passed year by year, when Queen Rhea became pregnant again, when Iapetus created more and more silver lives, time finally reached a certain point. Not because of accidents or being affected by the war between gods, the human beings in the Golden Age truly reached the end allowed by their fate. At the foot of Mount Odeals, in front of the Temple of Corolla. This is the first one. Another stone slab was buried in the ground, and Hua asked Cohen. The upper part of the stone slab is exposed above the ground, and the lower part is deeply embedded in the soil. When the human being it corresponds to spends his last days, a body will be buried in front of the stone slab. Even if the humans of the Golden Age died, their bodies would remain incorruptible for thousands of years. How many? I can't remember exactly. As a person who records history, you know their number better than I do. After all, for every person who dies, you carve the past for him and let them worship the gods as they did before they were alive. Sitting next to Hua, the king of golden humans glanced around. Compared with a few months ago, the number of humans around the temple has become much sparser. After all, golden humans are God's creations, and they are all beings thrown out by the Creator's whip. Therefore, whether it is strength, endurance, or even lifespan, they are surprisingly similar. When the first human lost his ageless appearance and died in just a few days, a large number of humans followed. Half a year has passed, and the human tribe under the sacred mountain is already half empty. However, humans are not afraid of this, not only because they have no fear, but also because they know that death is just the beginning of another life. The wise man Prometheus once told them that around the sun, and around those shining stars, there were golden human spirits living there. They can continue to serve God, even in the vast, starry sky. But it is said that there seems to be little communication between the gods in the stars and those on the sacred mountains. Did the gods send an oracle? Holding the stone knife and moving his hand constantly, Hua asked casually, "Death is not terrible, but after we die, there will be no one to clean the temple and no one to worship the gods. This is the biggest problem."
No.
Although Hua didn't look at him, Cohen still shook his head. It was as if he had been forgotten. Ever since the life named Hecate passed away, he had rarely received the oracle from the God King. Only a few times, gods occasionally passed by here. Maybe the gods don't care. They don't care about temples and beliefs. Somehow, Cohen recalled the dream he had. The goddess in the dream refused him to build a temple and did not intend to let Cohen pray to her. Over the years, he gradually understood the other party's thoughts. After all, even the gods on the sacred mountain only care about the act of human sacrifice itself. The gods don't get anything from human sacrifices, they just get some fun from it. So when there are other things, I will naturally relax my attention to them. Also, for the eternal gods, human beings are naturally insignificant. Even these stone tablets I carved will not last forever. After carving the last stroke, Hua looked at it for a while, made sure it was correct, put it aside, and picked up a new slate. But in a few days, I'm afraid you will be the only one left. At that time, I will also trouble you to carve my life on the stone slab, and then bury me in the soil, so that my past can be with God. If you are lucky enough to be chosen to go to the sky to be with the star gods, I will watch over you, Cohen. That I will. Cohen responded softly, knowing what the other party meant. As the first human being, he is most unique. Compared to others, Cohen could feel that he still had a long life that was not exhausted. He didn't know when he would die, maybe 1,000 years later, maybe 10,000 years later, but definitely not now. I will guard this place, no matter whether God cares about us or not, but human beings' respect for gods will never change. Under the gaze of the stars, I will guard this place until the end of time. Looking at Hua's face that had begun to age at some point, for some reason, a strange emotion surged into Cohen's heart. He didn't know what emotion it was, but he'd never seen it in other golden humans. He didn't know whether it was because he was the first human being or because of that unforgettable dream, but Cohen instinctively didn't want to face this emotion. So he stood up, said hello to Hua, and then walked towards the temple. At this moment, only God could give him a moment of peace of mind. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 96 Silver. In the Second Age, humans were always small. Except for a few existences, no god pays attention to the aging of human beings everywhere. At most, he thinks of it during some leisure time, and then suddenly finds that all human beings are dead. But death means death. Now the attention of the gods of Khaos is focused on the god king who gave birth to the sons of gods one after another. He has 3 daughters, and each of them has a powerful clergy and extraordinary talents, but their natural gender prevents them from threatening the throne of the god king. But Cronus cannot only have daughters forever, he will eventually have his own divine son. Just around the time the god king's 4th child was about to be born, on the great plains of Delphi, within the reach of the Earth Mother's divine power, silver humans were being born in the hands of this ancient god who had suffered heavy losses. Iapetus is watching the scene, and his 2 children and his wife, Clymene, the goddess of fame, are here. Since he had decided to disobey the god king's order, he would naturally be prepared. Unfortunately, he and his wife had a big fight because of this. After all, the god of speech has decided to live in seclusion under the protection of Mother Earth, and the goddess of fame is obviously not a god who likes to keep a low profile. Cronus, don't blame me. The arrival of the Silver Age is dictated by fate, and I just obey him. Holding the life bottle in his hand, a dark phantom mist loomed. Although she had made a decision before, when it came to the end, Gaia hesitated. Because of what happened before, she did have a lot of dissatisfaction with Cronus, but he was the first child to stand up and be willing to resist his heavenly father. She was willing to cause him some trouble, but she didn't really want him to pay a heavy price. This contradictory psychology is undoubtedly revealed in the myth. While she guided Zeus to release the giants trapped in the abyss, she created 3 artifacts for the 3 brothers. However, after the war between the gods and kings ended, she was dissatisfied with Zeus's harsh treatment of the Titans, giving birth to Typhon to fight against the Olympian gods. Throughout the entire process, Gaia's position could be described as swinging between left and right, never making up her mind. We've come to this point, my sister. Don't you want to stop? Have you felt the joy from the underworld? As expected, the next child of Cronus will have its divine power related to that place. It doesn't matter to me. Although the underworld is also affected by my power, it is only an insignificant part. But what about you? Your earth will lose another part. This is all brought to you by your good child. The voice of the Lord of Darkness, Erebus, was looming. He was standing beside Gaia, but the family of God of Speech who were watching turned a blind eye to him. As a secret itself, few gods can detect his presence if they don't want to. Even the laws of this world have ignored this ancient god to a certain extent. I see. He replied coldly. Gaia knew that Erebus' words actually made no sense, and the God King could not decide what the priesthood of his descendants would be. But reason is reason, and reality is reality. Just like what he said, Mother Earth also felt the vibration of the origin of the underworld. Although the underworld is not completely controlled by Gaia as a place where the real world and the outside world intersect, it is still a part of her. But soon, this part will also have a new owner. Stretching out his hand, he merged the faint darkness with the source liquid of the treasure bottle, and the original emerald green liquid was dyed with a shadow. Under the power of the earth and stones needed to create humans gush out and combine with the source liquid. Although he didn't like Ryan, Gaia had to admit that the humans he created before were already perfect. So, she just made slight adjustments to make them fit in with the life source fluid whose properties had changed somewhat. It is difficult to create, but easy to imitate, so just 3 days later, the prototype of silver humanity appeared. Different from golden humans, due to the infiltration of dark power, Gaia dare not create an excellent model first and then copy it, because only by diluting it enough can they look normal. So she had to repeat her actions over and over again, even creating hundreds of humans at the same time. Finally, when she stopped, dense crowds of silver humans had appeared on the ground. They have not yet been given souls, so their eyes are lifeless, but the breath of life has already appeared on them. It's just that compared to the Golden Age, for some reason the silver humans are short in stature, like the children of the gods who have not yet grown up. And even though he was just watching, Iapetus, the god of speech, felt an aura of indulgence, lust, greed, and cunning coming from them. It seems that the mother goddess is not in a good mood, so is her mood transmitted to these humans along with the divine power? But will such human beings really worship the gods as devoutly as their predecessors did? The god of speech couldn't help but feel puzzled, but due to the existence of Mother Earth, he didn't say anything. Creation is a task entrusted by Mother Earth. If we think about the prophecy, when the silver humans appear, war will break out on the earth, then their various behaviors become reasonable. Iapetus, I leave the rest to you. Gaia breathed a long sigh of relief, feeling a little tired. Doing the same thing over and over again made her feel mentally bored. In addition, the birth of the silver humans was a conspiracy, and she didn't want to see them again. As you command, Mother Goddess. Bowing slightly, the god of speech stepped forward. He picked up the artifact long whip, stirred it in the prepared materials, and then shook it lightly. Under the influence of the power of the artifact, as the materials fell to the ground, just like when golden humans were born, thousands of different types of animals appeared on the Great Plains. A strange aura came from it and fell on the long whip, and the power of this artifact became slightly stronger. Putting down the whip, the god of speech raised his cup again. It was filled with well water from the well of origin, and he used his divine power to turn them into mist, which enveloped the creatures present. After completing this step, Iapetus thought it was over, but he unexpectedly discovered that there was still a little well water left in the cup. That's because he took the well water according to the needs of all spirits to reproduce, but forgot that humans did not need to reproduce, so the part that belonged to humans remained. Then stay here. If the well water leaves the special cup, even if it is not used, it will lose its magical effect after 7 days. So Iapetus poured the remaining portion on a rock at his feet, and then watched the changes in the great plain of Delphi. Just under his gaze, humans and all spirits opened their eyes one after another, and silver life would spread across the earth. Of course, besides him, the one who saw this scene was Zephyrus, the god of the west wind, who had been hovering near Delphi. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 97 Hades and Tunzi. On Mount Odeals, the palace of the god king. Another divine vision. Judging from the scale, it is also a true god with a powerful priesthood. Unlike his brothers, Cronus can be said to have taken eugenics and nurturing to the extreme. However, it is difficult to say whether this is the influence of fate. After all, it is not uncommon in Khaos for powerful gods to give birth to weak offspring. In front of the main hall, Cronus's expression was a bit serious now compared to his previous leisurely look when his eldest daughter was born. Unlike before, this time, he didn't know whether the child he was born into was a boy or a girl. And the most important thing is that the third daughter, Hera, obtained part of the fertility authority from the Earth Mother. This authority is simply a natural candidate for the Queen of the Gods. Considering that for the gods of chaos, it is completely normal for brothers and sisters to come together, Cronus couldn't help but guess whether this was the queen prepared for the next generation of god kings in this world. As he thought about it, the vision around the sacred mountain became more and more condensed. But just when the aura was about to climb to the top, the god king suddenly looked outside the mountain. There, an invisible air current was flying towards him quickly. Zephyros, what is he doing here? Didn't I ask him to look at Delphi? His expression changed, just like the previous 2 times. The eyes of the gods were looking at the sacred mountain. At this time, if the god of the west wind comes so unabashedly, there must be something wrong with the Earth Mother. With one step forward, Cronus came directly to the opponent's side and then pressed Zephyros, who had transformed into airflow, back into his human form. Before he could ask, the god of the west directly told him the news he least wanted to hear. Your Majesty, I don't know what happened, but the Earth Mother and the god of speech created a new generation of life on the Great Plains of Delphi, and humans are among them. Boom. Buzz. The divine power that the god king unleashed unconsciously complemented the sudden buzz of a law. Around the time his son was born, the silver human race was born into the world. Cronus felt that what he had done before was like a clown in the face of fate. Wow. Dark ribbons filled the sky, and the earth shook. In a few moments, a stream of light mixed with the meager breath of the 4 primitive gods crashed into the hall, and the next moment, the true names of the new gods resounded to every corner of the world of chaos. God of the underworld, Hades. At the same time, perhaps the underworld welcomed its master. Under the earth, next to the river of oaths Styx, another river was slowly born, and an aging god also emerged from it. That is Acheron, the river of pain, and Charon, the river crosser of Styx. It seems that in many myths there is such a river, on which no matter except certain ships can float. They also all have a ferryman. If you are not willing to bribe him, all things can only look at the river and sigh. And Acheron, the painful river of Styx, is the unfloating river that belongs to the world of Khaos. Silver human, Earth Mother, I understand. In the sky, Cronus seemed to accept the fact. He asked the god of the west wind to monitor Delphi, just to prevent any god from secretly borrowing the aquarium of life. But if Mother Earth herself wanted to create humans, no one would be able to watch her unless he went there in person. It was just that when Gaia sent someone to deliver golden apples, Cronus thought that the other party would not do this, but in the end, he was disappointed. Is this fate? But I don't believe it. The voice was calm, but Spheros's body was trembling for no reason. His intuition told him that the God King seemed to be about to make some terrible decision. You should step back first. My eldest son has been born. Now, I want to go and visit him. No longer paying attention to the god of the west wind, the God King turned around and walked into the palace in the center of the sacred mountain. Without stopping, he reached out and grabbed it. From the gap in the space, 3 golden ambers slowly floated out. They were his 3 previous daughters. Even though they are sealed, they are constantly drawing strength from their priesthood to confront Cronus' divine power. The God King has no doubt that if he releases the restrictions now, they will all grow up to 8 or 9 years old in an instant. But that's all. Cronus, what are you going to do? Watching her husband open the door, his 3 previous daughters were floating beside him. Opposite the God King, lying on the bed, Rhea's slightly pale face was a little flustered. After being together for thousands of years, she could detect the ups and downs of the God King's calm expression. What's more, this time, her child is a son of God after all. It's nothing, Rhea. I won't treat you like Father God treats Mother God, I promise. Walking to the bed and whispering softly, Cronus sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the newborn baby. He seemed to be talking to Rhea, and he seemed to be talking to himself, but he seemed to be talking to something invisible. I don't know why, but these children of mine have more or less split the power of the Mother Goddess, so it is reasonable for her to make such a choice. Yeah, it makes sense, that's what fate is. He makes everything happen so logically, as if he did nothing in it. With a scoff, Cronus snatched the baby from Rhea's hands. He looked at him as he once held the sickle in his hand and looked at his father. I want to see what other tricks you can come up with.
Boom.
Silent vibrations echoed in the origin sea, but the laws of the present world did not take any further action. Unlike Heavenly Father, what Cronus did was not strictly illegal. Putting the gods back into the mother's body is an atrocity that violates the laws of reproduction. But swallowing the gods into the belly is just a special way of sealing the gods. They would thus be severed from most ties to the priesthood, but would still be in the present world. With the help of blood connections, the God King can even consume more than 10 times the divine power to perform the divine duties on their behalf. And unlike goddesses, babies cannot draw power from the bodies of male gods and continue to grow. They can only rely on their own isolated priesthood to slowly increase their divine power bit by bit. So Cronus did so and was unharmed. At the same time, outside the holy mountain, under the turmoil of the origin sea, all the gods with medium divine power and above knew what was happening. One god swallowed the other, using his power to suppress the other's growth and divine authority. They were shocked by Cronus' ruthlessness and determination, and for a while, the world of Khaos became quiet. Only Queen Rhea, who watched in pain as her husband swallowed the 4 children one by one, could still face her with a smile, even after that. For the first time, she felt a little strange. Golden apples, Mother Earth. When another child was conceived in her body, Rhea took out the gift Gaia had given her. If fate dictates that the God King should be replaced, let it happen sooner. At least in this way, the world can also reduce some disputes caused by this. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 98 Zeus. Thousands of years ago, in the underworld, the 12 Titans witnessed the prophecy that determined the transposition of the God King in the belly of Mother Earth. But in the end, Out of the curiosity of intelligent life about the future, Cronus asked about his destiny just like his father. So Ryan told him that when life and death are reversed, what he gains will be lost. The world is like a ring, and this is his destined ending. Rhea didn't know what it meant before, but now she understands. She has mastered the method of turning death into life, but she still needs something to help her turn life into death. But this is not difficult, because her eldest son, the underworld controlled by the divine power of Hades, was originally born from the intertwining power of the four primitive gods, so his divine power naturally possesses some of their characteristics. It is as all-encompassing as the earth and the abyss, as invisible as the eternal night and darkness. Although it only possesses some of their characteristics, if it only covers the weak breath of a new god, it can barely do it. Use this divine power to weave a roll of cloth, and use your brother's power to protect your younger brother. The premise is that the God King does not investigate seriously, but Rhea is willing to take a gamble. She believes that fate will be on her side. So she called Meliades, the three oak sisters who served her, gods born from the blood of Arenas. Rhea ordered them to find objects that were hard enough because it was difficult for mortal objects to survive long under the power of the God King. Finally, after decades of searching, they recovered a stone from the lava for the queen. When the stars once fell, some of the power of the sun also fell into the mortal world. The fact that this stone can be well preserved in the lava evolved by the sun is enough to prove its tenacity. So Rhea put the stone under her bed and used her divine power to wash it day and night. She was ready to wait until the right time, when the new son of God was born, which would play an important role in helping her child get rid of his crazy father. Since the God King swallowed his son, the world of Khaos has become quiet and strange. At first, many gods were looking forward to whether this crazy move would bring punishment from the world, but hundreds of years later, nothing happened. It wasn't until the fifth son of the God King came to the world, Poseidon, who was in charge of tsunami, storm, and earthquake, was born on Mount Otis, and Cronus once again swallowed him without hesitation. Did the gods begin? I believe that maybe the God King really used this method to avoid his destined fate. Not only them, but Cronus himself also thought so. Now that his destined fate has been postponed, he once again sets his sights on the land and sea, which can help him further his power. So, 300 years after Poseidon came to the world, the God King set foot on the sea alone. He set foot on the river of the world and used his unparalleled power to fight against the Lord Ocean and her wife, the original water goddess Tessis. Although Oceanus' power has approached the peak of powerful divine power after acquiring a large area of unknown seas, and although he and his wife will become even more powerful in the ocean, he is still in front of the current God King. Fall into disadvantage. After 10 years of divine warfare, the divine king finally stepped on the sea under his feet, once again establishing his supreme authority. Oceanus failed, but unlike the sun god, Cronus could not really do anything to him in the ocean. After all, the ocean was not the home of the God King. So in the end, the Lord Ocean God presented his scepter to Cronus, making it part of the God King's scepter, and the God King also recognized his right to rule the sea. The surrender of the sea caused the power of the God King to rise again. Looking around, almost no gods in the world of Khaos dared to openly resist the rule of Cronus. Not surprisingly, the Earth Mother and the God of the Mountains will be his next opponents. The 30% of the land acquired previously can no longer satisfy the appetite of the God King. However, as Rhea became pregnant again, the God King returned to the holy mountain first. Although on the surface, fate can no longer stop him, Uranus also thought so when he stuffed the Titans into the belly of Mother Earth. So Cronus was not careless. He wanted to make sure that none of his children could escape his control, and he would never give them the opportunity to conspire with outsiders, even if this outsider is their mother.
Boom.
Dark clouds were gathering, thunder and lightning struck, and rain fell in torrents from the sky. Standing on the top of the sacred mountain, the majestic heavy rain hit me. The God King did not use his divine power to disperse them, but allowed the rain to slide down his body. Wind and rain are very common in Khaos, but this is the first time such a celestial phenomenon has occurred on Mount Odiles. Cronus could feel that this was caused by the new god who was about to be born. There is no doubt that another of his children has weather-related authority, and his priesthood is extremely powerful. Don't worry, Khaos. Just like Poseidon, he has no chance to shake your control of weather. Watching the changes in the sky, Cronus casually comforted the weather god beside him. The god king couldn't help feeling a little emotional. Among his children, except for the eldest daughter Hestia, all of them expanded and plundered the existing priesthood. This gave the god king a hunch that perhaps the natural priesthood in the world had gradually been distributed. Gods born in the future will increasingly focus on perfecting old concepts rather than pioneering new ones. There may even be a day when God and God's descendants may not still be God.
Boomstreepje.
Silver and purple streams of light flashed between the clouds, making a deafening roar. That was part of the weather, but it seemed to be more than that. It contains the aura of destruction and is full of vitality. Although it has not yet been born, Cronus can already judge that the new god's vocation is enough to support divine power above level 19 and possibly even higher. This couldn't help but make him speculate that maybe this child was the one who was going to overthrow him in the prophecy. But I can't say for sure. Although this priesthood is powerful on his own, even if he grows to his peak, he will never be my opponent. What's more, he won't have a chance to grow. Oh, fate? Then let me see how you can help him so that he can overthrow me in my belly. Looking at the silver snake flashing in the sky with a sneer, the invisible energy became more and more boiling. Through the thick clouds, Cronus could feel that the sun and moon alternated 3 times, and the vision finally reached its peak. At a certain moment, with another loud sound, the true name of the new god spread throughout the world. The King of Thunder, Zeus. There was a little accident, and I posted the unedited chapters. The main text has been changed to 73, but the chapter names have been edited. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 99, The Exchange of Life and Death. Outside the world, the true name of the new god has been spread throughout the world, but in the hall, an intense operation is still going on. Queen Rhea held her newly born child in her arms and looked anxiously at the maid who had been waiting for a long time. Come on, get it." With a pale face, but with a hint of urgency, the queen took the stone from the hands of the white oak goddess. She once thought about giving birth to a child somewhere other than the holy mountain, but Cronus obviously did not give her this opportunity. Fortunately, considering that he was in his own territory, the God King waited politely outside the main hall. But when the Son of God was born, Rhea knew that he would be the first to walk in. "Your Highness." The oak goddess took out the stone prepared in advance, and Rhea took it in her hand. She used her magical power to change the shape of the stone so that it looked similar to the baby in her arms. But this alone is not enough. Rhea also needs to make it possess life and be infected with the breath of the new god. So she closed her eyes and cruelly slashed the baby's chest. The newborn god howled loudly, causing the thunder from the outside world to become more and more rapid, but Rhea could not care less about her heartache. She quickly dropped the blood from the baby's heart on the golden apple and then covered him with a roll of gray cloth. "Take him away," she said, "to the sea, the domain of my eldest brother Oceanus." Except for the mother goddess whose attitude is wavering, he is the only being in the world today who is willing to fight against the God King. You tell him that Cronus' pursuit of divine power will not end here. If he still wants to keep the authority of the sea, if he wants to take more rights from the new king, so this is the best opportunity. Seeing the white oak goddess nodding in agreement, Rhea finally looked at the baby in her hands. She was a little reluctant to part with him, but still handed him to her maid. She did not do this when Poseidon was born because his priesthood was inherently associated with the sea. Storm and tsunami will make ocean god reject him, and earthquake will make mountain god and Mother Earth hate him, but Zeus is different. He has a powerful clergy, and there is only a clerical conflict with the God King's helper, the weather god Khaos. Even if it is to leave a backup, the ocean god system will definitely accept him. Move, as you command, Your Highness. Slightly bending her knees, the white oak goddess took the baby and left in a hurry. Watching the other person's back as he left, Rhea didn't stop what he was doing. The God King had already entered the palace, and the sound of his undisguised footsteps could be heard. Fate is on my side, and I will succeed. After saying something silently, Rhea blended the golden apple with the stone in front of her. The divine fruit blended into it and turned into Shuring's heart, emitting a powerful beating sound. The rock has been burned by the sun without deterioration and has been washed day and night by the power of the Queen of Gods. It has already produced divine power. When the golden apple containing the divine blood of Zeus merges with it, it seems to be alive, and it exudes an aura belonging to the gods.
Top.
The footsteps of the God King were approaching. Rhea didn't have time to think too much. She wrapped the swaddling clothes she had prepared in advance on the stone and covered it with cloth. She held the baby in her arms, then closed her eyes, waiting for the fate to be pronounced. Tread. The footsteps stopped in front of the